Amen.
Amen.
And now for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mayor Williams.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Warner. Councilmember Bovair.
Here.
Councilmember Goins.
Here.
Councilmember Koss.
Here.
City Attorney Garganese. City Manager Takanich.
Here.
And Assistant City Manager Buick.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we can move on to approve our agenda and minutes. What's the wishes of the council for our agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilwoman Cost, a second by Councilman Goins. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Our minutes from January 23rd, 2019.
Motion to approve the minutes.
We got a motion by Councilman Bovair, second by Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're going to move on to awards and presentation. We got a presentation by Dr. James Fenton. He's the Executive Director of Florida Solar Energy Center. Councilwoman Cost.
Yes, I'd love to give that introduction, and thank you for being here tonight. Dr. Fenton is the director of the University of Central Florida Solar Energy Center. We actually have the brain trust of solar located right here in Cocoa in District 4. And he leads a staff of 70 in the research and development of energy technologies that enhance Florida's and the nation's economy and environment and educate the public, students, and practitioners on the results of the research. FSEC leads national programs funded by the U.S. Department of Energy and Transportation in Building America, energy efficient homes, photovoltaic manufacturing, hot humid PV testing of large-scale PV to show bankability, solar-ready vets, and train the trainers education for solar installations, as well as programs to decrease the soft costs of PV installation, electric vehicle transportation, and clean cities. He received his PhD in chemical engineering from the University of Illinois, his BS from UCLA, and he's serving as the secretary of the Electrochemical Society. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here with you this evening. I am hoping I will be able to share you a little bit of enthusiasm about where solar is going, and then as a result, all the opportunities for us. Things have been changing rapidly over the, let's see. Okay. There we go. Great. I'd like to talk to you today about solar, and we'll bring up a little bit also about electric vehicles and transportations. I do want to remind all of us that everybody in this room pays an electric bill. You're not going to be in the solar business. You're in the business of lowering your electric bill, and that's true for the city as well, of course. So we look at this opportunity as solar is coming along and getting cheaper. It's an opportunity to think of it as an investment. So we'll all share that with you, as well as the jobs and generations. Back in the 2010 timeframe, solar photovoltaics, its actual cost, a piece of equipment, you might put it on your roof or you might put it on a utility field, but it's actually levelized cost of electricity, the equivalent cost of electricity as you might pay out of the wall. So to give you a flavor on this scale, today residentially we pay about 12 cents a kilowatt hour for solar. So you can see in 2010 residentially you'd be paying 42 cents. Nobody in their right mind would be using solar. We put it on the space station because the cost of the extension cord all the way up there was too expensive. So that's why we used it up there. Okay. But in 2010, both the residential, the commercial, and the utility costs were all very high. You'll also notice that the difference between the residential at 42 cents versus 27 cents for the utility was a 15 cents difference. I'll remind you that the utilities purchase their power plants generate the electricity from that, and then run it through transmission lines and distribution lines, and there's taxes and so forth associated with that, as well as the fact that they also have to make a profit on all that. We look at the 2016 numbers, and you can see it drops down to 18 cents, 13 cents for commercial, and 7 cents for utilities. So the numbers have come down, but still not equivalent to the 12 cents out of the wall, right? And a few things started to happen. In the 2017 timeframe, Florida started to entertain the idea of using solar co-ops, buying solar in agglomerated sort of ways, and big purchases, reducing the soft costs. And you can see that we were able to drop it down to about 5.9 cents. So in 2010, it was way too expensive. In 2016, it was about equal. In 2017, it's about half the cost of what you're paying out of the wall. So I bought it then. I've been at the Solar Center since 2005. I wasn't putting solar on my house. It was too expensive. Now it's the best investment I can make. Now, let's look at that. You'll notice that the commercial dropped down to 4.6 cents at that particular time, too, on their rooftops. Those are examples of the cost. In the case of a commercial system, it depends a lot on the size you've got. 100 kilowatt, 200 kilowatt. As an example, Satellite Beach put 200 kilowatts on their city hall. Okay, and you can see there that the cost is even for the 200 scale is even cheaper than my 4.6 cents. Okay, we move along. The utilities. Last year, electric utilities in the state of Florida were putting 75 megawatts. It's pretty big. A nuclear power plant, on the other hand, is 1,000 megawatts, so it's still much smaller than a nuclear power plant, but it's still pretty big, 500 acres worth of dirt it would use. And it'd pay on the order of around 3.6 cents last year with no lithium-ion batteries. Now they're paying that same price with 4 hours of lithium-ion batteries. That enables them to move the peak when the sun's coming out to when everybody goes home and runs their air conditioners. Utilities are printing money right now because they're putting solar fields everywhere because they're the cheapest things around. Okay, the gazelle does not have to outrun the cheetah. It has to outrun the slowest gazelle. Okay, we've already chewed up coal. It's gone. Oil sands are gone. Oil is going to convince you about electric cars and natural gas. So the bottom line is your goal is to put a cheetah on your roof. Okay, you need to put a cheetah on the top of the city hall too. Okay, what have we been doing in Florida? So this is the photovoltaic installation, and those are in megawatts over there on the left. But you can see in 2010 to 2015, nothing. Things managed to occur in 2016. The utilities started to put in a lot. That's the light blue bar. 2017, we put in more. The income tax credit was continuing, and that's an estimated number for 2018 all the way out to 2023. In this last year, FPL alone has blown this up because they're planning on putting in a gigawatt, which is 1,000 of those megawatts themselves every year until the year 2030, because they're going to have 30 million panels and 30 this. So they're going like crazy. But perhaps most importantly is you should notice that the dark blue, which is the residential, and the little bit of yellow there, is that we're increasing. And we're actually increasing at a faster rate than the utilities. It is estimated in the United States by the year 2023, the customers will be buying just as much solar as the electric utilities do. Now in Florida, the utilities are going gangbusters. We've got a ways to catch up, but that's going to happen, and it may be at break-even point by the year 2028. Okay. This just is a little blurb about the solar co-ops. We've had one here in Brevard. This is where several people come together, and sort of they end up buying in like on a Chinese menu, a la carte. From the contractor's perspective, that really lowers their costs. Their customer acquisition costs have gone down. And so if you go look at the solarunitedneighbors.org on the website for Florida, you'll find a lot of information about it. Councilwoman Lorraine Koss is very active in that group as well. I know she has solar on her roof, as I did. And so I was a customer of the Brevard co-op that occurred before. I think we're having another one sometime in March that'll be starting out, so people are interested in that. This is something you should look at. The #1 fastest growing job in the United States is solar installer. And you'll notice Florida, the #1 job growth is solar installer. But you should also be aware, there's about 5 times as many people install solar panels on roofs than there are on the utility scale one. So the jobs are all on your roof, not in that 500 acres, okay, that the utilities put up. So not only are you making a good investment, but you're employing your neighbors. So something to think about. This just shows you the salaries. It turns out that solar photovoltaic throughout the United States, the average salary is $39,000 a year, and it's grown by over 105%, and it anticipates that that'll continue to it. You'll notice number 2 is wind turbine technician. So renewable energy is taking off in the jobs and everywhere else. This just sort of shows you that the amount of solar workers in 2018 actually went down a little bit, but it's a 159% increase from 2010. And the lower left, you can see here that the bulk of the jobs are in the residential and the non-residential. Each one of those solar installations is a custom job. It requires a little bit more high tech. So there's opportunities there for job growth. Why don't you also look at a change in paradigm? Our primary goal, as I said earlier, okay, is to not use energy. Imagine taking a $1 bill and lighting it with a match. That's what you do every time you turn on the light switch, anytime you do any other kind of little things using energy to get in your car. You're effectively burning money. So we want to stop doing that, okay? If I have to do it, I want to use it locally rather than exporting money out of the state. And of course, I'd like it to be more renewable and more energy efficient. So we can operate our buildings with electricity from utility and rooftop solar. I'd still rather have you put more efficiency measures into your home because that increases the wealth of your house and you're not burning money. But we can also drive our cars on Florida electricity, and that's cheaper than gasoline today. The reality is anything that uses a fuel, the price goes up. Anything you dig out of the ground, cement, whatever, prices are always going up. Technology prices go down. They go down with scale. In addition to that, they also reduce our gas and NOx, and the jobs and wealth stay in Florida. So let me give you a little bit of, we'll do a little math exercise, okay? The average car on the road gets about 25 miles per gallon. And you can pick whatever price you're paying. Let's just say, for example, they're $2 a gallon. And so if I take $2 a gallon and divide it through by 25 miles per gallon, it costs me 8 cents for fuel to go 1 mile. That's what it means. And if you drive like most people, that means you spend about $1,000 a year on gasoline. Now, there's all the other costs you do as well. Now, an electric car that are coming out, and my Nissan Leaf, which is in the parking lot here, wasn't able to plug it in, though, but I have a 150-mile range, so I didn't need to. Okay, all right, because it did get plugged in at home, and I'll get to you why the benefit of that is in a second. But the 3.7 miles per kilowatt hour, and I divide through, in this case, I use the nation's average electricity cost, which was 12.5 cents. When I divide that through, I get to 3.4. So comparing the 8 cents at $2 a gallon versus the 3.4 cents, you can see that's more than twice as much. So when I use electricity out of the wall, made in Florida, okay, I'm paying the equivalent of 84 cents a gallon. So if you think $2 a gallon is cheap, you're wrong. It's 2 times too expensive. Now, if you put solar on your roof, which is I was eligible for the income tax credit, so this is what I do, okay, I pay 4 cents a kilowatt hour. I'm paying the equivalent of 27 cents a gallon. So for the users that are still using gasoline, half of that money goes to foreign entities and maybe other states, okay? I keep all the profit, all the labor, and all the money at home. I'm paying 27 cents a gallon to drive my car. All right? It's an interesting opportunity to look at that. Now, we want to talk about where the future are. So the sun doesn't shine all the time. Okay, so what happens when we want to make electricity at night and even things of this? You'll look at this graph here. This is the gigawatt hours. That's the energy stored, okay, in the various devices. And you look down at the very bottom of the line there, you see that green line is actually the stationary storage. So that would be batteries put all over the place. Utilities in your house, power walls, whatever they might be. And you'll notice that even out to 2030, your consumer goods are even larger. So your iPhones and your cell phones and whatever else, okay, actually will hold more energy than all the stationary storage they're anticipating by 2030. But you'll notice there'll be 24 times as much energy storage in electric vehicles. Now, the electric vehicles are all on the customer side of the meter. So by 2023, you, the customer, are going to control your energy generation. Hopefully you made your house more energy efficient. And you're going to have an energy storage device in your garage that does a pretty good job. And you've already paid for it because it's cheaper to drive than what you're doing today. And by the way, we'll have pickup trucks by the year 2023 too that are electric. Right? Interesting. Now, this gets a little bit complicated. Okay, this is about why it's a good internal rate of return. So ignore the bottom axis. Just look along the internal rate of return there where it has 0 energy storage. So if I was to go out today and buy solar and put it on my roof, as I told you, it turns out at 0 kilowatt hours of battery there, you look up to the yellow line and you see that's about a 12.5% internal rate of return. Twice as good as the stock market, it's fixed for 25 years. So if you have $10,000 to invest, you gotta own your roof, but if you got $10,000 to invest, I dare you to find a better investment. And by the way, you'll keep most of the money locally here in Florida as well. Now, as it turns out, by the year 2023, when there is no federal income tax credit, the price of solar is coming down low enough that that will be close to a 15% rate of return. All the way up there to 2030, I'm up close to a 27% rate of return. Now, if you choose to wait for a 20% rate of return, in my case, I'll actually be dead maybe by then, but, well, I hope not, but nonetheless, you wouldn't be making your money today. So putting solar on your roof makes money. Now, what happens if you choose to go ahead and add batteries? The black line there shows you the battery effectiveness. So for the average home in Florida, okay, if I wanted to be able to use all the solar, I would put 9.35 kilowatts of solar on my roof. That would make all the electricity I'd need. I'd use the batteries to get me so I could ride through without the grid connected and so on and so forth. And I could get all the way up to almost 100% effectiveness of the battery, way up there when I get out to 40 kilowatt hours of battery. Now, there is no business model for you to use a battery today. It just sits there. And if you were using it for reliability or when you lost power, you honestly hope you never use it. Same way I feel about my gasoline generator. I own it, but it's an insurance policy. I hope I never need it. Okay, it'd be the same way with the battery. But the cost of the batteries are coming down. So you'll notice that by the year, if I went ahead and bought a battery today, my 12.3% would drop down to its lowest, down to about 3%, you know, the cost of money, okay, by the time I got out to a 26 kilowatt hour battery, and the 15. But by the time I get to 2030, you're gonna have batteries, and even if my price suggestions are correct, and you put 100% batteries in there, you'll still be making 12.5% on your money with the battery and the PV. Another way to look at it is the Nissan Leaf that I drove here today has a 40 kilowatt hour battery in it. My car is already cheaper, better, faster than the car I used to own before. I already have the battery in my car to go ahead and satisfy my resiliency problems. So you'll start seeing in the future, we really will do this vehicle to grid, where the solar in the car can get you through anything, right? I would encourage you to be thinking about facility fleets switching over to electric. We can do the numbers for you if you'd like to look into that. Opportunities for demonstrations on the solar on the buildings around here. Here's the key takeaways. The cost of electricity out of solar on your roof at home, you can't beat it. You got the money, own the roof, do it. Commercial, it gets a little bit more complicated because there's something called demand charges, and you got to do some math to figure out whether it really lowers your overall electric bill. Solar displaces your energy, doesn't necessarily meet your demand charges. PV and an electric vehicle are far better than the gasoline car. As I hinted, residential storage is a tough market for us right now. I myself have a 5 kilowatt gasoline generator that I can run my whole house on. And because I went out and purchased a very efficient air conditioner, I can actually even run the air conditioner on that. Where you get a cheap air conditioner, you can't do that. So I can keep my wife cool when we lose power. The business model, it's a complicated one for businesses, but you can do it. And then vehicle to grid may be a good possibility for the future. So if I was the city, first thing I would be doing is be looking around all my buildings for energy efficiency upgrades. Instead of doing one big splashy PV installation, I'd do several smaller ones. I would measure them, measure the load data with the PV, so you get really accurate data, so future purchases you can do wisely and make them as wise as you can. I wouldn't be in a hurry to do this. You might want to consider installing a 10 kilowatt PV canopy with a couple level EV chargers, good PR, you can put the data out. You can comment about that all the elected officials around here are running on solar that they make right at City Hall. Okay, much better than the hot air stuff. Okay, that was a joke on gasoline, not you. And you can display all that energy information, okay, in real time for the public. With that, I'll close. This is a quote from Thomas Edison back in 1931, and he actually said this in the southern part of the state of Florida. When he was out here with his friends Harvey Firestone and Henry Ford, because they were really upset that the people that were really making the money were digging holes in the ground and pulling oil out instead of the technologies associated with cars. So they were actually looking for ethanol as a fuel back in 1931. Thomas Edison said this: "We are like tenant farmers chopping down the fence around our house for fuel, when we should be using nature's inexhaustible sources of energy." I'd put my money on the sun and solar energy. What a source of power. I hope we don't have to wait until oil and coal run out before we tackle that. Oil and coal will keep existing. The reality is it'll be cheaper to keep it in the ground. Okay? And then with closing, solar on your roof and an EV in your garage is where you put your money. A better return to the stock market and the jobs stay in Florida. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from any of the council? Any comments or?
Just to say that we'll be having you back.
Yeah, well, you can tell I like to talk. Okay. I consider myself I've been called a solar evangelist, you know. So we'll see how that goes. Thank you very much for
Well,
your
thank
time.
you. Thank you for coming out, sir.
All right.
Okay, that was the last of our awards and presentations, so we're going to move on to our delegations. You have 5 minutes to expound on whatever it is you need to talk about. First up is Mr. Warren McKee. You can state your name and address when you come up, sir.
My name is Warren McKee. I live at 2142 Michigan Avenue. I brought another sign tonight. I picket Michigan Avenue, and if y'all drive down that street, you might see me from time to time. And I'm begging people to drive like their children live on that street. But what I've noticed is that the signs appearing on Merritt Island, Melbourne, one of the counties near us, their sheriff department is giving out these signs. So we have a problem. On Michigan Avenue, a few months ago, my neighbor got killed. So I'm not very happy about that. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I want to play a short audio here. If it doesn't work, I can explain it. Wish us luck here. Oh, I'm sorry, I had to turn my sound down when the meeting started. Let me start over here.
Unless you're talking about being hit by a speeding car, then it becomes a matter of life and death.
In fact, 5 out of 10 pedestrians can survive being hit by a car if it's only going 30.
Just one survives if it's going 40.
When it comes to speeding, it's just not worth it. It's 30 miles per hour for a reason. This message is brought to you by the Port St. Lucie Police Department.
So as you see, we got a problem in our country. I believe the city of Cocoa has an opportunity to lead and show other communities that we can put an end to this. A few weeks ago, I sent you guys my petitions. I don't know if you got them or not.
Yes.
And on my cover letter, I explained that we want speed humps, but we understand that the expense and whatnot, and so we wanted to try stop signs to see if they'll work. Maybe they'll work, maybe they won't. But I do know this. I have a stop sign in front of my house, and I think that was a good idea for the city to come out there and put that stop sign up. But I don't think the city did a complete job, and that's why I'm here tonight. Because in front of the museum, people slow down on Michigan, and then as soon as they get past that light, it's Katie, bar the door, and coming the other direction, when you get in front of the fire department, they're running about 40. Kind of ironic, somebody sent me this video today. I don't like 50% odds at 30, but better than 40. So what I'm here tonight is to ask why you only put up one sign when we talked about it and we were going to put several up. We got Auburn Avenue that's available. That's near the fire department. On down toward Mount Street a little bit, there's another street, Tulane. And I thought that we had an agreement that if we did stop signs, we would do more than one. As you know, I'm not shy. I'm going to stand out there holding this sign until I die if I have to slow these cars down. And there's other people that'll do the same thing. There's just not enough of us. So anyway, I guess I want to ask the city, will you put up another stop sign and give this thing an honest chance? I mean, or am I going to get a, we're working on it? That's my question tonight. I'd like to go back to my neighbors and say they're going to work with us. And if you're not, I wish you'd just say, we've done enough.
Well, I'm going to say we appreciate everything that you're doing yourself. And the staff, our Public Works Director, we hear you. And hopefully they're going to be addressing that issue. I don't know why the one sign was put up. I didn't know all the details behind that, but we'll look into it. And
Yeah, they put the first stop sign up, and I believe there's been some monitoring. There's been some police trying to catch people going through that sign. So I guess what we do next.
Well, let me say this, if I may. I understand, and my neighbors understand, you guys can't be there 24/7. And that's the problem, because when you're gone, they take off. I'm surprised there's not black marks in front of my house. I guess you guys know, I went on vacation. I'm glad I missed the first week. I was out of town. But somebody came by, they ripped the signs out of the ground. You guys had to come back out and cement them in. So, I don't know. I guess I'm begging you to put that other sign up. I'm begging you to say, yes, we'll do it.
I can tell you this is not a dead issue, so we're going to do everything we can to try to remedy that problem over there. And now what those are, I don't know. We're just going to have to get with our departments and just figure out what we can do to address those issues. Because we know there's an issue over there. I've been there. I've seen the speed.
We just don't want to wait till somebody else gets killed or hurt.
Exactly. I agree with you.
Maybe we can put the electronic monitoring, that machine we have, they had it up there for a while, yeah.
It was up for a month, but the batteries were dead for 2 weeks. They put the cables across the road, somebody broke them, you know?
But we got you, sir. We're gonna be working on this, and we'll stay in contact with you.
Well, I hope you do it as quick. You've already shown us you could act quickly. So hopefully in the next 2 weeks we'll have another stop sign. Because I get up early. I don't want to keep coming back. Have a good evening.
Thank you for coming out. Next up, we have Reverend J.B. Dennis.
Is there another spot or another sign?
Good evening, everyone. Reverend J.B. Dennis, 3710 Catalina Drive. As a chaplain and the chair of security at Metropolitan Missionary Baptist Church, I try not to allow being homeless and poor a crime, so I'm kind of merciful. But I like to head too that they pushed the wrong button. But to make a long story short, we stopped the homeless from putting the trash on our church side of the road. So what they've done now, they pile it over there on First Street and St. John. And that ditch down there behind the Ice House, it ain't been cleaned out because people been dumping back there. And we would like that the city get the trash up over there, because I allow people that's homeless to come over on our property to charge the phones. And I also got a problem with the homeless over in our old building that we have. It's going to be torn down sooner or later, so Tomorrow I'll be jacking up those trustees that we don't trust about tearing it down. So the first issue is we need to get that trash cleaned up over there on St. John and First Street. It's an eyesore.
We saw it. We saw
Okay,
it
thank you.
Saturday. Yes.
All right. Homelessness is a crisis in the city of Cocoa, where there are significant costs and strains on law enforcement, the courts, private businesses, and other public resources. There are only a few organizations and volunteers with the capacity to provide services to the homeless. My church gives out food on Mondays and Wednesdays. On Thursday, we go into homeless camps with bag lunches, and also we give bag lunches out on Thursday to the homeless vets. The large crisis is the lack of housing. The city should pledge tonight to become committed to building a 24/7-hour homeless shelter so men, women, and children can have a safe place to sleep every night. Housing stability affords people a foundation for life improvements and opportunities to address the issues that cause their homelessness. When basic needs are met, such as meals, showers, and beds, people can engage in programs to improve their lives. Whereas the National Action Network also petitioned for a workshop to reach a solution to end the homeless crisis in the city of Cocoa. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, next up we have Mr. Alex Greenwood.
Thank you, Mayor, council members.
Sir?
I'm here in reference to some construction work that's going on in downtown Cocoa Village where I live. It also is right next door, it started anyway, to a building I built 32 years ago. The crosswalk that is located there on the corner of Derby and Brevard for over 30 years was brick. And that was an access route for the whole construction of Oleander Point condos. It has never required any maintenance whatsoever. There is no damage under that crosswalk that required that crosswalk now for that brick to be removed. When that was happening, I tried to get information about it, and the information I got was that they want to remove the brick, that again, no issues with it, and put tar down, cut the tar, stain it to make it look like brick. Now this type of construction, you can go to Merritt Island and you can see it everywhere, and it does not last long. It requires more maintenance than the brick that was there to begin with. Not to mention the money it cost to remove the material, heavy-duty equipment, a staff of about 5 or 4 people to do it. The material that they're removing can be reused. I don't know if that's happening, but if it's not broke, you don't fix it. Now, if there's extra monies that obviously is being used for this, not only to pay to have it removed, but the cost of the material that's being removed, there's areas of the city that needs it badly. And one, for example, is the area between Florida Avenue and US 1. It's also called Consent Decree area, the old settlement area. There was 40 oak trees that were removed because the city was not watering them properly. I have them here that I can identify them and show exactly what streets they were planted on that are now no longer there. Somebody came from the city when I was doing some renovations on some of the property there with the Sawzall, the ones that were dying, instead of upkeeping them, they removed them. Also, there is no budget for this area of the city for maintaining it. And that was the biggest concern at every meeting I went to for that neighborhood by the neighbors that have lived in that neighborhood for years. And what their concerns were is happening. There's no budget to maintain that area. There are 2 street lamps. One is across the street from property I renovated that used to be known as a crack place. You drive in, you drive out, 15 units. With that being said, there's a lamp post at 228 Orange Street that has not been replaced for an extended period of time. That's lighting. That's only $3,000. So the crosswalks that now I see in addition is at the end of Orange Street between Chase Bank and the Historic Society building. Could very easily, at $150 a tree, that's only about $6,000 to replace all the oak trees that we're missing. The street lamp's about $3,500, give or take. That's something that could put back what we promised to that neighborhood that they were very concerned about from day one, with no budget to maintain it. Even the street lights there, I had to add FPL lights to increase the lighting that we lost when we changed to the lighting we have now. Those bulbs can be increased to higher wattage. I'm just here to find out, as a builder, to me, I cannot, it doesn't sit with me well. And there's several other people that asked me to come and speak for them. One of them happens to be the ex-mayor that lives on the same street off of Derby. Henry Parrish cannot believe that this is happening. There are other people that I'm representing as well. I can provide that information. My time is up. All I'm saying is that I need to see if I'm overreacting or if this is something of concern for something that does not need any work done. If you've got money to burn, burn it where I suggested, for an example. Somewhere in the city, 528, the landscaping there has died since the widening of the road. It's all over the city where it could be actually utilized. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
Next up, we got Mr. Alan Chapman.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Alan Chapman,
Good evening.
Executive Director, Historic Cocoa Village Association, 600 Florida Avenue, right here in the city of Cocoa. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I just want to talk to you very quickly about the upcoming Art and Craft Fair. We have over 200 booths. We're up about 25% from previous years. As you may recall, on Saturday, the art competition will provide over $6,000 in prizes to area artists and crafters, and we're looking forward to a very, very exciting event. Our budget has been expanded for promotion, and I know we're competing with the Grand Seafood Festival, as we always do, but I hope we're going to have a great weekend this weekend. It's Saturday, 10 to 5, and Sunday, 10 to 4, so please come out, bring your families, family-friendly, pet-friendly, as always, in the village, of course. Another matter I'd like to speak to just briefly, Alex just mentioned, Mr. Greenwood, sorry, just mentioned some issues with paving. Throughout the village, we have a lot of paving stones down on sidewalks, and we do have some in crosswalks. And these paving stones, for us, have been an ongoing issue for maintenance and for safety. They present a trip hazard every time something gets pulled up. Now, we do have the new type of patterned paving done at the Florida crosswalks at Florida Avenue and Orange, and they hold their color well. They're very effective. They appear to be maintenance-free, which is a lot that or something we can't say for the amount of time that has been spent repairing pavers at various locations in the sidewalks around the city and in the crosswalks. I know that wasn't perhaps what you wanted to hear from me tonight, but I think that the Historic Cocoa Village Association would much prefer to see the budget maintained as new paving is carried forward in crosswalks, that the paved concrete represents a low-cost and very effective alternative. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next, we have Ms. Teresa Clifton.
Good evening. Teresa Clifton. I'm the Executive Director of the Brevard Humane Society, 1020 Cox Road in Cocoa. And first, I would just like to thank Mayor Williams, Councilwoman Koss, and Councilman Goins for coming out to the Mardi Gras Pause in the Park and being judges for us. We had a really great turnout. There were 800 or so people with their pets out, and it was a beautiful day. And I don't think anybody came after you, did they, Mr. Goins? Anyway, it was just really awesome, and we were very happy to see so many people out with so many well-behaved pets. And we do really greatly appreciate y'all supporting the effort. We raised about $3,000, and we used those funds towards our low-cost spay neuter wellness clinic. As most people know now, we received a $25,000 grant from the state of Florida for the people who purchase car tags that pay the extra $25. It goes into a fund for spaying and neutering animals in the state of Florida, and we received that $25,000 and brought it into Cocoa. Of course, anyone in Brevard County that came to us with a low-income kitty or a feral community cat, we would spay or neuter it for free. We still have about $15,000 of those funds left, because our goal is to prevent having unwanted litters of cats and to have, you know, unwanted animals in general roaming the streets because of various issues that presents to people and to the animals. And then I also would just like quickly to mention to you all that it would be so awesome if the city of Cocoa would join other counties or other cities in Brevard and other counties in Florida and make a ban on allowing businesses to come into your city that would sell puppies that come from outside of a natural local breeder. Because unfortunately the majority come from puppy mills out of Pennsylvania and Ohio area, and it is really sad. It's not the puppies that we're trying to save, it is the moms and the dads of the puppies, because puppy mills are very sad and disgusting places, and we have enough animals here that we're trying to find homes for, so we really don't need anybody shipping them in from outside of our state. So we just ask that you would consider that as a requirement that you might want to get behind. They're dealing with it on a county level, on the unincorporated areas, and sooner or later they'll figure it out. But West Melbourne, as of late in the past few years, has gone that route, as has a couple of other cities in Brevard County and a number of counties. There's a very long list of them in the state of Florida who are now also banning it, since we can't control them from bringing them in from doing an interstate compact, because that is a federal thing. We have to be responsible citizens, and as the gentleman spoke before about homeless people, it is the same with homeless animals. It creates the same issues as it does for homeless people. You know, where are they going to go to the bathroom? How are they going to get fed? Are they going to bite somebody? Are they going to create issues that creates more activity that costs taxpayers dollars? So anyway, I just wanted to bring that up because I was very moved by the mayor's town hall meeting, and I realized that if you don't speak up, people don't realize that there is a problem. And this is something that the city of Cocoa does not have a problem with right now, so why not just prevent it from happening instead of waiting until it does happen and then having to have issues with people like the gentleman in Melbourne who has a pet shop that sells puppies that we can trace up into Pennsylvania, even though he says that he knows where they come from. He's never been there. So we just don't need them here. So I would ask that y'all would consider that. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, that's bring us to the end of our delegation there. We're going to move on to our consent agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilman Don Bovair, second by Councilwoman Koss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? It passes unanimously. On to our public hearing. Our first item up is a request for a substantial amendment to the city's approved 2018/2019 action plan in connection with the proposed application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, known as HUD, for $894,445. in Section 108 loan. Mr. City Attorney, do you need to read in this resolution? No?
No, I don't.
Okay. Okay, Community Service Director.
Actually, Deputy Director, thank you.
Oh, Deputy Director. I'm sorry.
Nancy couldn't make it tonight. So yes, this is our final public hearing in accordance with the requirements of 24 CFR 91.105C to request a substantial amendment for the city's approved FY 18-19 action plan in connection with the proposed application to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development for the $894,448,000 Section 108 loan. And the funds for this Section 108 loan will be used for the construction of the new Dr. Jolie Smith's Community Center, which is currently, we have an approved design build team in place who are working on completing the plans. And once this loan has been transmitted and received back to the city, we'll be able to use those funds to complete the construction of the building.
Yes, ma'am. Any comments from the council before opening it up to the public? I'm going to go ahead and close it to the council and open it up to the public for any public comments, if you have any. Seeing none, I'm going to close it to the public, open it back up to the council. What are the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion by Councilman Goins and a second by Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're going to move into our second item on the public hearing, and that's approve a preliminary subdivision consistent with Chapter 18 of the City of Cocoa Code for London Cove, subject to conditions identified in the agenda items.
I'm going to turn this over to Dodie Seelig, our Planning and Zoning Manager, and she's going to present you with the information about London Cove.
All right. So this item is, as you said, a preliminary subdivision entitled London Cove. The project has 3 parcels containing just under 19 acres. It's on the south side of 524, immediately west of Cocoa Commons. It has 3 zoning designations on the parcel: CN RU-2-10 and RU-2-15. And the property is currently vacant land. You can see here the subject site's in red. This is just south of 524 and just west of Industry in that intersection. So a little background, the project was originally approved by the city in 2009. It had 6 commercial lots along the road frontage and 61 townhomes in the rear. Unfortunately, the recession came along and the project was not built. However, the applicant is here today. He's proposing to similarly subdivide the property into 6 commercial lots along 524 with 1 single residential parcel to the south. And that would be developed residentially at a later time. Supporting infrastructure for the lots will be built right now in conjunction with the commercial lots. That'll include the stormwater pond, 2 internal drainage easements, and then there's a 45-foot easement that connects drainage with from 524. And my pointer's gone. Okay, I was going to point out. So 524 in the picture is on the northeast corner, northwest corner. Have you got her? You know where it's at? Oh, okay, thank you. Well, thank you, Matt. So that's the drainage easement. The stormwater pond is right about right there where your hand is. Okay. You can see the 6 lots across the north. There'd be an access road of London. It's an extension of London Boulevard. So with that, there'll be a signalized intersection there, connection. And the end of London Boulevard will offer access into, oh, thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, so this is London Boulevard coming down. It'll offer entrance into the residential portion. All of this down here is the future residential development. This is parcel A, and then there's B, C, D, E, and F across the top. This is an access road that would provide future connection. Cocoa Commons sits over here. And along the southern side of that road is or will be, I should say, a buffer wall with landscaping to provide separation between these commercial lots and the future residential area. And then this polka dotted area to the south, that's the existing wetlands. Then that was actually deeded to the city when the project was originally approved. Through that process, we acquired all of that. It connects with Cocoa Conservation in terms of flow from the wetland areas. So staff looked at the subdivision regulations for neighborhood commercial zoning districts, looking at the creation of these lots. The 6 lots that would be created would be between 161 and 287 feet in width, which is significantly more than the 75 required. The depth would range between 260 and 300 feet, which again gives a considerable increase over the minimum requirement, and the lot area created runs between 41,000 to 86,000 square feet, considerably above the 75 required by the code. The remaining parcel portion, Tract A, really considerably exceeds the minimum lot requirements for either the RU 210 or the RU 215 zoning district that's currently there. The property is located, as I said, on the north of an existing wetland area. Portion is in the AE flood zone. So Geocintic consultants reviewed the project, and they provided a number of comments, and they'll need to be addressed before there's development to the site. In looking at the comprehensive plan, I found policy 1.1.2.8C, which addresses pedestrian connectivity between neighborhood commercial and surrounding multifamily development and encourages that connectivity. And objective 1.1.5, which is neighborhood protection, which states the city would ensure that additional growth and development is respectful of established neighborhoods. With respect to concurrency, staff's done a preliminary review, found that services are sufficient to meet the needs of proposed development, and as always, we will do a final review when the final application is provided. So the next step, if approved, the preliminary subdivision will allow the developer to begin construction of the improvements to the site, provided all the conditions are met, and that the final subdivision will have to be applied for within 1 year of the approval of this preliminary. The Planning and Zoning Board recommended approval with conditions of the subdivision at its December 5th meeting, 2018. Some of those conditions have been addressed and were not included in the recommendation. Recommendation tonight before you is to approve a preliminary subdivision consistent with Chapter 18 subdivisions and Appendix A zoning of the City Code for London Cove, subject to the conditions set forth below. 1, all unresolved review comments from City of Cocoa staff or other reviewers on behalf of the city should be addressed prior to the final subdivision application being heard by City Council unless an earlier deadline is established below. And number 2, provide revised preliminary subdivision plans and plat addressing the following comments. From utilities reuse, please provide a reuse connection and detail on the plans. From the fire department, number 1, maximum distance to a fire hydrant shall be 400 feet and measured along fire department access roads. Refer hydrant locations may be at street corners, intersections, and recommended under street lights when applicable. An approved water supply capable of supplying the required fire flow or fire protection shall be provided at all premises in accordance with the Florida Fire Prevention Code, Chapter 18, Section 18.4.5.21, and noted on plans. Number 2, should the subdivision have gated entry or development approval device to open entry security gate during emergencies by fire department personnel should be provided. Number 3, fire department access roads of at least 20 feet in width and designed to support the imposed loads of the fire apparatus shall be provided at the start of the project and shall be maintained throughout construction. Number 4, during building construction, contractor shall maintain access to all parts of the site, provide fire extinguishers in designated areas. Accumulation of combustible waste material, dust, and debris should be removed from the structure and its immediate vicinity at the end of each work shift. Number 5, during building construction, any security fences and gates shall have a Knox lock so fire department personnel can access the property. Application for key lock shall be obtained by fire inspector. Number 6, any underground water mains and hydrants are to be tested and approved prior to commencing construction work on any structure. Number 7, upon building completion, commercial building address number shall be 6 inches in height, and individual single-family homes of at least 4 inches in height per Florida Fire Prevention Code, NFPA 1 Fire Code, Section 10.11. Address numbers shall be posted in a manner to be seen from the street. Number 8, project to follow Florida Fire Prevention Code 6th edition, NFPA 1, NFPA 101, 2015 edition, in addition to building code and other related codes and standards. Recommended chapter to review, Chapter 18, Fire Department Access and Water Supply, and Chapter 16, Safeguarding Construction, Alterations, and Demolition Operations. Number 9, the design and use of any traffic calming devices shall be approved by the AHJ. From Public Works Department, the road and drainage is to be private and maintained by the owner. Number 2, traffic signalization along London Boulevard will require additional rework. Number 3, the current pipe that discharges State Road 524 runoff to the property is about 30 inches. The plans for State Road 524 runoff bypassed through the site calls for a 43-inch by 68-inch ERCP. The drainage study did not show how they came up with this size pipe. We'd like to see the calculations justifying that size of pipe. Number 4, the plans show an irrigation line a little too close to a line of oak trees. Please provide a little more separation between the center of the oak tree and the irrigation line. This will minimize future disruption to the irrigation system from oak tree roots. And finally, city surveyor and floodplain management. Number 1, provide copies of revised plans to address the city surveyor comments, as well as payment of the surveyor's final invoice. Number 2, provide revised plans to address the floodplain review comments. Number 3, provide a copy of the new St. Johns River Water Management District permit. And number 4, the conservation element of the comp plan policy 12.1.6.15 suggests that for projects requiring a St. Johns River Water Management District permit, the city shall require as a condition of development approval that wetland buffers shall be protected and enumerated by a perpetual conservation easement. As such, further review of the wetland areas shown outside of the conservation tracts is required, and that additional conservation easements or tracts may be required upon final plat approval. I'm done.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
You say the developers are here?
Yes.
Are these the same developers from back then?
It is, yes.
Because I remember this project from way back when. I don't remember the developers that well, but.
Yes, Mr. Schmidt's here if you have questions for him.
What I'm going to do is just go ahead and, if the developer can come forward, I'm going to go ahead and open up to the public so they can, if they have any questions, they can go ahead and ask those questions. And if the council have any questions, then they can ask those of the developer. So is he?
Yeah.
We're actually the consultant for the developer, Dave
Okay.
Schmidt, Dave Schmidt Engineering, 12301 Lake Underhill Road, Orlando, 32828.
Okay.
And we agree with staff's recommendation, and thank you for working with us. And we're happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, I'm just going to open up to the public real quick, and then we might have some questions for you, so just in case. And I'm going to close it to the council and open it up to the public for any public comments. Yes, sir. You can, if you want to come up and state your name and address.
Sure. Does this work?
Yes, sir.
Oh, good. My name's James Smith, 2107 Claremont Drive, Cocoa, Florida.
Okay.
And I couldn't tell by that map that you had up there, not that it was a bad map or anything, I just couldn't read it, but how close is this going to be to the high-speed train corridor that's going to be coming in through there? It seems like that corridor is pretty close to 524. And so that was my question.
Yeah, I'm not for sure.
I can, well, the train alignment is actually on the north side of 528.
Okay.
It's on the south side of 528 till it hits 95. There's a proposed overpass, and then it's going to kind of create an overpass for 528 with a little bit of a tunnel, and then run east and connect where their tracks are, what they're calling the Cocoa Curve, to come down. So it's on, it's not even close. It's on the other side of 528.
On the other side, on north side of 528.
That's correct.
Yeah. I saw
At
all
about at 90, just a little bit past 95 is where they'll do the raise 528, and they'll go under, if you will.
Well, I saw all those railroad ties staged just north of Walmart.
Yes.
And so I thought, it's probably going to be close to that location.
They own that property and the property behind the Walmart Center. I mean, they're currently running from West Palm Beach to Miami, and it's my understanding some of the litigation that existed for counties to the south are being resolved, and they are now in the process of further expanding, and they've already, it's already complete, the multimodal terminal at Orlando International.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments from the public? I didn't. Okay, we're going to go ahead and close it to the public and reopen it back to the council.
I make a motion to approve.
Hold on one second. Let me see if was there any comments or? Okay.
I do have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Brenda.
That's okay. Do we have a time frame as far as when we can expect to actually see some site clearing and some development going on?
8 years ago. From what I've been told, they're anxious to get the out parcel infrastructure and out parcel work started because they have potential buyers for several of the out parcels. So.
Okay, so the commercial lots, they've already got an interest in the commercial lots. And so we'll see that well before we see the residential portion? Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilman Bover.
Second.
A second by Councilwoman Cost. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Dodie. We're going to move on to council business, and that brings us to approval of a reduction of a code enforcement lien for the property located at 1050 Grove Avenue from $32,475 to $1,440.79 as recommended by staff and the Code Enforcement Board. Chief.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. This is a property that was originally cited in September 15th of 2016. The original violations for the property were high grass and weeds, outdoor storage, and fence in disrepair. On December 8th of 2017, the property was brought into compliance. Let me also add that during that time, the current owner was not the owner of the property when it was cited. The Code Enforcement Board at its regular meeting on January 30th, 2019, recommended that the lien be reduced to $1,440.79 based on the fact that it had been brought into compliance and it was under a new owner.
Okay. Just one thing. This property was purchased with the liens attached to it, right?
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to make sure. Okay. We got Mr. Dan Barber. If you'd like to come forward, you want to speak on this item?
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Dan Barber, 380 South Courtney Parkway, Merritt Island. I own that property. I am just here to answer any questions if you might have them. We brought it into compliance as was mentioned, plus a couple other things too. There were some windows that we repaired, replaced the door and fixed the soffits. I'm in the process of restoring electricity to the property, waiting for a permit actually from the city.
Well, sir, I got a couple of comments. I was at the Code Enforcement Board meeting when that item came up, and I looked at some of the pictures, and it was all right. I actually went out to the property earlier today, and then I revisited before the meeting tonight. And I looked at this property, and there's some current Chapter 6 violations on that property right now. And,
I'm not familiar with those.
And I was very disappointed that this item actually came before the council without some of those items being corrected. I understand they weren't a part of the original code violations, but they're still existing right now on that property. For the life of me, I mean, I just, you know, people buy these properties with these liens on them, and I understand that, you know, you bring them up to par, and that's fine and dandy. But you know what? I can't personally forgive liens on a piece of property until all violations or any violations on that property have been brought up to par. I mean, there are some issues with that property right now. I was out there. There's some, one of them was high weeds and grass. The grass actually needs to be cut right now. It's at a level. There are some screen issues. There's some concrete issues over a couple of the windows. So there's some issues that are probably should have been written up by code enforcement once they went out there and took some additional pictures. We have a lot of residents that are facing these issues right now with their homes. And I think that if we're going to enforce the rules, we need to enforce the rules across the board and hold everybody to that same standard. And I just think this item should come back. I would like to table this item and have it come back once those issues have been corrected. I support the code board, and I know what they do. And I sat on the code board. I actually went out to that property. I wanted to see with my eyes. And I will be doing that in the future. And I just wasn't happy. I wasn't happy with what I saw there. I just wasn't happy at all, because I was a part of the Chapter 6 that when we first brought it and started doing all the modifications and the changes throughout the city, and start being a little proactive with our code enforcement issues. And but this, there's some issues still. And I just, knowing that you bought the property with liens on it, and there's still current issues on it right now that you haven't been cited for yet. They should have been cited, but they weren't cited. And I just can't, with good conscience, approve this. And I'd like to see it tabled and come back to us after those improvements have been made. You know, I respect the code board, but I know what I saw, and I know what I see. And we expect better we expect better from our residents, and we expect better from individuals that come in and purchase property in the city of Cocoa.
Yes, sir.
And nothing against you.
No, I understand that, and I'm happy to do, if I had known what those issues were, they would already be taken care of.
Yeah.
There's other things we want to do. It wasn't relevant to when we met here, that I want to do to the inside, terrazzo and some kitchen work, but I can't do that if I can't get the money to do it.
Yeah.
I'm happy to take care of whatever issues that you see that you know, that are a concern to you. I just don't know what they are.
No,
I haven't moved forward with anything because I'm waiting. I was waiting for this to happen. It was already postponed once.
Yeah. It's just, I just need to have some kind of guarantee that those issues are going to be taken care of, because like I said, this probably have been an issue for a number of years for the residents that live over there, but I just need to know that, you know, that these issues are going to be taken care of. I mean, I just I would like to see something in there that contingent on those issues being taken care of. You know, we'll forgive them, but, you know, those issues need to be taken care of.
I will do it. If you tell me what they are, I will do it. I will get on it tomorrow.
And I got with the city manager this morning. I showed him some, well, it was yesterday, I believe. And I showed him the pictures, and there's some stuff that need to be addressed. It's nothing too major, but it's some stuff that need to be addressed.
I'm happy to do it. I really.
Yeah, we're just trying to change the makeup of our city. And we're trying to do it across the board.
I manage quite a few properties in the city of Cocoa, and we renovate quite a few. I'm doing one on Fisk now, and others. 800 Fisk, we renovate a lot of those properties there.
Okay.
So, you know, all I need to know is what concerns you. I will take care of it right away.
Okay.
So, Chief, can you make sure that whoever's responsible for this particular case get with him, and possibly the mayor, to work out the issue so we can
I mean, I'd like to move this forward. I mean, I'd love to move it forward. I think that But I just want to make sure, I want some guarantee, maybe in the future, we can start putting something in writing that, certain things need to be taken care of after we go out and actually do a full inspection. Because even though we wipe away and some liens are gone, and you corrected certain issues, if there's still existing issues that hadn't been addressed yet, then we need to make sure those issues are addressed. And because we've been seeing a lot of that in the city, and and to me, it's not acceptable, not anymore.
One of the other reasons I have not been able to do anything further is the meter was taken, and I have to get a permit from the city of Cocoa and approval before I can get the power company to go up, put the meter back in, so I get power to see what else needs to be done. Right. So I'm waiting on that now.
Well, I'll tell you what, sir, I'm gonna take your word for it. I'm actually gonna take your word for it, and I'm gonna remind you of this, because we're trying to change what's been happening in the city.
I understand that. I know that. I recognize.
So we just want you to be a part of that process, and any other council members? Councilman Goins, I see your light on.
Yeah, Chief has something.
Mayor, I would just say that we would follow up with that. If there's new violations, we would cite the new violations and then start that process over again, or preferably get with the property owner, explain to him, and I've already spoke with code enforcement, because I was too by the property this morning. I've already spoke with our code manager. He was going to be in the process of reaching out to gentlemen and telling him that the grass needs to be kept up. It needs to be cut regularly going forward. And if that doesn't happen, we would go out and go through the process again, recite the property, and do the same thing again.
Yeah. And there was that one issue over the one in the back. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, there's a sill outside. Yeah. Yes, and that's another thing. We have, as I said, we have no power there right now.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney.
Mayor, getting confused here. Perhaps you need to table this item and have code enforcement go out there and just take a look and make sure that the property does not have any current code violations, because in order to apply for a lien satisfaction, not only do you have to bring the violations that were previously cited and subject to the lien in compliance, but in order to be presented to the city council for consideration, there cannot be any current code violations as well. And until code enforcement can advise the council that that is the case, it's kind of premature to act on this application at this time, in my opinion.
Okay. Any other comments?
I make a motion that we table until the next meeting.
Second.
And I'm sure, knowing Mr. Barber for several years, and he has an excellent reputation in the community, I'm sure he'll get it taken care of.
Thank you. We'll figure it out. Okay, we got a motion by Deputy Mayor Warner and a second by Councilman Bovair to table this item to the next meeting. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously.
Thank
you, sir.
Somebody you'll get with me? Someone will get with me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to our second item on the council business, approve the amending of resolution number 2018-97, amending the required minimum amount of monthly training for committee members from a total of 4 hours of combined training with 2 hours in the dispatcher center and 2 hours of ride along with our city police officers to a minimum of 4 hours of riding along with city police officers. Chief.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is in reference to the Cocoa Police Community Relations Advisory Committee. Excuse me. After the resolution was approved by council, we went back and looked and spoke with FDLE and looked at issues that we may have involving our criminal justice information service and what the requirements they impose on us as far as who can be in the buildings, what you have to do, and the additional stuff that would have to be done. Based on this information, it is our recommendation that instead of including the communication center or dispatch center, that there just be a 4-hour ride-along for the committee members per month.
You know, I was looking at this, and I was thinking about this, and I was thinking 4-hour ride-along per month? that's a lot, and these are volunteers, and we have boards where individuals make some very crucial recommendations to the council. We have a planning and zoning board, our code boards, and board of adjustments. And a lot of those individuals come in and they get no other training other than what they're thrown in there. And I don't think that they sit down and get talked to at all about what their responsibilities are. And I think to require for this committee to have to spend 4 hours riding along with the police officers every month, I don't understand how that's going to benefit them. I mean, I don't see it. Maybe 4 hours semi-annually or something like that, but monthly for volunteer, that's a little bit much, and it's going to be hard to actually keep people on this board if we do something like that. I don't agree with that, but it's just my personal opinion. So we got Councilwoman Koss.
Well, I just wanted to say that the time that I spent riding with the police was really valuable. So of course, I think we still want to make sure that any volunteer involved does that. And in fact, I'd like to go back and spend some more time because I think it kind of changes your perspective. But the 4 hours with the preparation for the meeting, because I know what I'm finding, in order to be really prepared and really ready for these meetings, I basically spend as much time as I spent at the meeting. So even this meeting is like really 6-7 hours of your time. And that's true with the Sustainability Advisory Committee too. So I would really like to see, I know in the initial orientation, that 4-hour block is probably a good thing, but if that could be reduced after that, I think it would be much more reasonable, an opportunity for us to maintain a high caliber in our volunteer group. So I'd like to see it reduced to 2 hours a month following that first orientation.
I'm good with that.
Yes.
Okay, Councilman Goins.
I'm thinking the same way Councilwoman Koss. I think 4 hours may be excessive, but definitely for the orientation portion, I think we need that because of to understand what police go through, to have that conversation and relationship with the officers. I think is very, very important. But we also do not want to lose volunteers as well. We want to make sure that this particular committee is vibrant, and I don't want to lose anyone based on time. So I'm definitely for the 2 hours. I think 4 hours is excessive.
Well, I don't know. I think 2 hours is good, but I think the first drive along should probably be 4 hours to get them acquainted, because in 2 hours they can end up at an accident scene and be there for, on Clear Lake and Michigan for 2 hours, and what do they accomplish? Oh, gee, I want to go some more. So I think we should allow 4 hours, and if they want to go home after 2 hours, they should be allowed to go home. Actually, they can go home anytime they want. Oh, they have to tell the officer, bring me back to my car. Am I right, Chief?
Absolutely.
So if they're out there for 4 hours and they get tired after 3, could you please bring me back to my vehicle? And that's it. There's nothing in stone that says, they're not getting paid, so we can't force them to stay there for 4 hours. But some people that like it out there should have the opportunity to go for 4 hours. And if you don't want to, after 2 hours, you want to go home, could you please bring me back to my vehicle? Like I said, if they go out for 2 hours and they get stuck at an accident scene or an investigation and they're sitting in the car for 2 hours, then what did they accomplish? Nothing. And that's my own personal opinion, because there's nothing in stone that says they have to be there 4 hours. If they get tired after 3 hours, they could say, as we're going, can you bring me back to my car?
Right, because they can spread it out throughout.
Or take me home, or whatever the arrangements are. That's my opinion.
Deputy Mayor Warren, anything?
I don't necessarily think 4 hours a month is excessive, because you don't have to do it all at once. And we do require our VCOPs to put in 8 hours a month as volunteers. I don't see a lot of difference between this board and our VCOPs as far as dedication to the police department. But as long as they get an initial orientation so that they understand, because I agree with Councilwoman Cost, if you've never been out there and you don't really know what's going on, it not only changes your perspective of what the police officers do, and it does that every time you go on a call with them, it also changes your perspective and changes what you see of our city. Most of us are only out running around the city in daylight or early evening hours, and you don't necessarily see what goes on the rest of the time. So it's a good, I mean, this board is going to be making recommendations on what our police department does and what our police officers do, and the only way they can do that is to have a good understanding of what our police officers deal with. So I have no objections to doing an initial 4 hours and then 2 hours a month, because personally I think that once they've been out there for a few hours, you're probably going to find them out there more frequently than just a couple of hours. I mean, you get out there and you intend to stay an hour or two, and you end up being out there 6 hours because there's a lot going on, and it's, you know, exciting, and you don't want to go home till you find out what happens at the end of that call. So, so yeah, I'm fine with the initial 4 and the 2 after that.
You know, maybe I'm a little confused, because my understanding of this board, of this committee, is not to tell the officers what they do and how to do anything. It's my understanding this is just a recommendation and just some dialogue between them and some and the chief and officers when there's some issues that arise in our community that some of the community have some issues with or need to be addressed. So this is not a deal where the officers are going to be told how to perform their job. They're the professionals. They're trained to do this, and to think that individuals would come in on a committee and tell them how to do their jobs.
No, it's just a recommendation.
It's just some dialogue between the two of them. They don't have any hiring or firing powers, and I think that's a problem. I think a lot of people are getting confused about what this committee is going to be about, and this is just to address some concerns of our residents and the citizens when it comes to some issues that arise in our community. That's it. That's it. And then if you look at the makeup of some of the individuals that are on this committee or that have been submitted for this committee, they're officers of the courts already. You know, a few of them are lawyers. And I mean, if they don't know what police officers do, I think all of us know what police officers do. But I think as a volunteer, you know, to get out there and put in 4 hours, I think it's crazy. A month to require that. I think we're going to lose members. We're going to lose committee members, and it's going to defeat the purpose of this whole committee. And just once again, that's just my opinion. And but what is the wishes of the council?
I have one thing. So I got a question for you, Mayor. Do you have an issue with the initial orientation?
Oh no, I think that's great that they, you know, I believe that 4 hours initial orientation is fine, and then maybe
your concern is after.
Yeah, afterward. It's just continuously. It can be, you know, I mean, what more are you going to get out there?
Okay.
You know,
Well, just 2 hours a month following that feel burdensome.
Yeah, that's even, I mean, if I'm a volunteer, that's like, wow, you know, I got to come in and sit in a meeting.
Well, considering you're going to spend several hours in preparation.
Yeah, and you'll be in a meeting for several hours, and then I got to go ride for 2 hours, and, you know, and I got a job and other stuff, and this is volunteer. I think it's a little bit much for volunteers that are not getting paid. But, once again, that's just my opinion. So I'm just waiting on one of you guys to make a motion or any recommendations or.
Well, I think you have a point. I definitely recommend the initial 4. I do understand, because I've been on boards as well with the city, and it does get trying at times with reading agendas and getting prepared. I'm all for the initial 4. I probably would not. I'm not going to vote yes for this. Based on the initial 2, I think you have a point. You kind of changed my mind about that. Thinking that the other boards that we do have don't require any. I think that's what you're getting at, is that other boards that we have within the city don't require that. So why does this particular board require it? I think my recommendation is the initial 4 hours.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, the chair's gonna make a motion. I'm gonna make a motion that we approve this item, but with the certain modifications that we'll do the 4 hours initial ride with PD. And then after that, there will be no additional riding, but if something arises and that needs to happen, then we'll do that, if there are new members that come on or whatever the case might be. But I think initially we need to, just starting off, we'll do the 4 hours and then just see how it goes from there. And if we need to do some additional training or whatever, we'll do that. But we need to just get this up and running and going without all this other stuff. So that's my motion.
Second.
Yeah, motion by the chair and a second by Councilman Bover. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're going to move on to item number 3. Approve resolution number 2019-011, adopting the East Central Florida Regional Resilience Action Plan. Councilwoman Cost.
Yes, thank you. I'll just give a little background on this. The East Central Florida Regional Planning Council has an initiative to develop this resiliency action plan all along the, in East Central Florida. So they're working with municipalities in Brevard and Fallujah to develop this more storm preparedness, but also emergency preparedness. So this resolution will resolve us as a municipality to work in partnership with other municipalities and with the council to see this happen. So let me go ahead and let me read the goals of it, just to give people a sense, rather than the whereases, which are, is that okay?
That's fine.
On the resolution?
Yes.
So there are 4 sections, which is where the goals are and the things that we will, then there are also 20 objectives. So these are all, if you go online, you can read these, and I encourage you to, because these are the things that we want to work toward, and our Sustainability Advisory Committee is working on right now. Promote leadership, education, and empowerment in government, public, and private sectors to foster the implementation of resiliency strategies across disciplines and communities. Section 2 is to provide opportunities and strategies to foster economic prosperity and improve social equity and justice in preparation for and recovery from stressors and shocks. Section 3 is to encourage development of cross-disciplinary plans, policies, and strategies to protect the health, safety, and economic welfare of residents, businesses, and visitors through recognition that natural disasters, changes to climate, and human manipulation require careful consideration of when and how to develop infrastructure, natural resources, and a built environment that can withstand and adapt to these changes. And Section 4 is to create resilient communities by facilitating programs, opportunities, and community-wide education pertaining to local sustainability, disaster response, and climate change mitigation strategies. Now, we have been working with the Planning Council with the Resiliency Action Plan component of the Planning Council, and we actually have a grant. They are going to be developing a plan for us to become more resilient. A couple weeks ago, they had a workshop, which was, I found, really informative. We had a good representation from staff, and I would like to see more participant involvement in that, and there will be more workshops in the future, so I hope that people will keep an eye open for that. So with that, I'd like to make a motion to pass this resolution.
I got questions before we do
Yeah.
that. We know we have an emergency management for the county as it is now. John?
Yes, we do have an emergency management in terms of both in the city, and we work in conjunction or in coordination with the county. Part of the resiliency action plan, at least and even at the workshop, we did discuss emergency management in terms of response. I mean, when you think of the devastation impact the devastation that occurred in the waterfront, if we were to rebuild and identify areas that we could be more resilient to mitigate and limit that damage in the future, and that's the plan. I mean, and at that workshop, there was yes, I agree, it would be nice to see more members out and participating, but there was a couple opportunities to discuss,
Okay, thank you, okay.
And this really focuses on the risk reduction and building the resilience, the storm and emergencies. That's their real concentration.
We got a motion by Councilwoman Cost, a second by Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Can I say one more thing? Can I give a little recognition here?
Yes, ma'am.
We have members of the Sustainability Advisory Committee in the audience. If you wouldn't mind standing. I think is Trina still here, and I know Trina was a part of this original board for this resiliency planning. This group has been working really hard. There are more members too, by the way, but they have been working really hard over the last year, and they will to actually produce a plan, which is not an easy thing to do under sunshine and the limited amount of meetings and staff resources that we have. So I'd just like to thank the brain power that we have going into that, and we'll look forward to that plan and them working with this group. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Okay, we're going to move on to our next item, which is under city business. Review community action related to McFarland Park.
Mayor Williams.
Yes, ma'am.
Can I ask, under section 112.3143 of the Florida statutes, prohibits a member to vote on a measure when they have property in that will be affected by this? I would like to recuse myself. I have the form that I can give to the city clerk, and I'd like to step down from the dais
Yes, ma'am.
during this discussion.
Okay. But anyway, this is item number 1 in the city business, review community action related to McFarland Park and provide directions as deemed appropriate by the city council. Mr. City Attorney. I'm sorry, Assistant City Manager. Sorry about that, Anthony. Let me to scare you.
I don't want to take away Matt's thunder here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have the agenda item before you. I'd just like to provide a little bit of background to get you to this point where we find ourselves now, as prior action was taken on this item under the former council, and to ensure that all members are properly informed and understand the present situation that we find ourselves. As you may be aware, August 2018 of this past year, city staff was approached by Brevard County staff as there was a request by some local area residents to meet and discuss some safety-related issues with McFarland Park. Now, McFarland Park is located in the northern part of the city on the east side of US 1, just adjacent to the Indian River Lagoon. It provides access for boaters, small vessel craft launching, and then there's also a picnic table where folks can enjoy the views of the river. Members approached the county initially for gate closure as the park closes at dusk. The county staff began doing that. There were still security-related issues that were mentioned to the city as well as the county at our joint meeting. And also at that meeting, the issue related to the ownership of McFarland Park was brought to our attention. Once learning this information, the city undertook a title search to determine the ownership of the park, and that information was presented to City Council at the October 10th City Council meeting, and a background was provided not only related to the title work, but also the known history and operation related to the park, the city, and the county. And key to that discussion was the title search that was obtained by the city for the park lot, and it revealed that the city had no recorded ownership interest in the property, and that the original plat dedication for park purposes applies to all lot owners within Carlton Terrace subdivision. That's a very key distinction, and I want to make sure that all members of council are fully aware that, you know, whether it was in the 1950s, 1960s, it doesn't necessarily matter. The present situation that we found ourselves in upon learning this, we were in the same situation back in 1924. There's nothing that changed. There's no history to be found as to why, you know, the city and the county were operating this park, as it clearly appears that the lot is owned by the original developer of Carlton Terrace, which is a dissolved Florida corporation. The lot owners of Carlton Terrace actually have a private easement dedicated by plat for use of the property for park purposes only. That private easement runs in favor of each lot and generally cannot be separated, conveyed, or terminated by the lot owners without a replat of Carlton Terrace, which would require all of the lot owners to agree to. It can't be severed from each lot. Based on this information, the direction of the prior City Council on October 10th, 2018 was to proceed with considering the adoption of a resolution disclaiming any city ownership interest in the park in order to correct the Brevard County Property Appraisers database, but also to provide the lot owners of Carlton Terrace sufficient time to discuss amongst themselves how they would like to move forward given the information that was revealed in the title report. At that time, Anthony advised members of council that it is in the city's interest to expeditiously move this along due to the cloud on title. And that exists because the city, you know, operating and maintaining in concert with the county for a number of years, as far as records indicate 1965, while not actually owning the park. And so there's much confusion amongst the neighborhood, and with that, there were multiple community meetings for the lot owners in Carlton Terrace, of which I attended 2 of the 3 meetings that I had heard of. Both meetings, around 100 attendees. A lot of the discussion centered around questions related to the ownership of the park. Is a lot of the lot owners, this is the first time they're hearing the information, and obviously this is a very can be a very confusing issue, certainly complicated at the least. And so we have received to date 2 citizen petitions, one requesting that the city disclaim all interest and return that property back to the lot owners within Carlton Terrace. And then the second petition is a request for City Council to consider, you know, a manner in which to provide public access to that park and continue to operate it as it was. Now, there was a 3rd meeting held this past Saturday, it's my understanding. I did not attend the meeting, and so I'm not certain as to the outcome of that meeting and what the discussion was. But due to the information obtained in the title report and the city's historical use of the park property, city staff believes that the cloud on title currently exists regarding the park property. So absent a successful court action by the city should formally remove the existing cloud on title by recommendation, officially recognizing that the city has no legal interest in the park. As such, city staff recommendation is that the status quo is not an acceptable arrangement for the city and the lot owners. Therefore, under the circumstances, the City Council has the following policy and related legal options. The first option is to proceed as previously directed by the City Council on October 10th, 2018, and proceed with the adoption of a resolution disclaiming any future city interest in the park property. That resolution could be presented to City Council at a regular meeting in the near future, and upon adoption of that resolution, That resolution would be recorded in the official public records of Brevard County, which would ensure the city's position regarding its disclaimed interest in the park is revealed in future title searches related to Carlton Terrace and lots therein. That was something that I heard repeated at these meetings, is that a lot of the owners that purchased in the subdivision were completely unaware, and their title searches didn't reveal that they had a plat dedication to a public or to a park in their neighborhood. As a result, the city will no longer be maintaining the park property. We've since abandoned that property, and I believe that the entry gate is locked, not by a city or county lock. And the Carlton Terrace lot owners will be fully responsible for maintaining their private easement over the park lot pursuant to the plat dedication. Or the second option, and there's an A and a B to this option. The second option is to proceed with legal action in court to attempt to pursue a city interest in the park property for public park purposes based on any applicable legal theories, such as a quiet title action based on the city's historical and actual use of the park property for public park purpose. This cause of action will be based on several legal theories and the application of numerous legal factors, and will be an extremely fact-intensive case to successfully prove. We all know that the facts of this case, some of them aren't even known to members here tonight as to how we found ourselves in this situation. So when we're talking about fact-intensive, we could be looking through newspaper records dating back to 1924 manually. So it's extremely time-consuming. If a successful result in court, would be uncertain. If successful, it's possible the city may only obtain a public dedication or easement that will have to coexist with the private lot owners. Now, as we know, that may be difficult to manage. Certainly, even among the leadership team here at the city, trying to agree on a very small item sometimes can be difficult, let alone 230 lot owners that may change from time to time. However, the city's dedication or easement in the park for the benefit of the public will likely have to be exercised in a manner such as not to prejudice or unduly interfere with that of the lot owners, each and every lot owner. At this time, it's uncertain how a public park can coexist with the private park interests of approximately 200 different lot owners that will change over time. Now, the second option that would be available for City Council is eminent domain. The city would seek to obtain fee simple title to the park property and acquire the private park plat easement from the lot owners. The city would be required to pay reasonable compensation to the fee title owner and each lot owner for the value of the property interests acquired by the city and associated legal fees and litigation expenses incurred by the fee title owner and each lot owner in the eminent domain action. It's unknown if the city would be successful in that action. Of course, there is a financial cost to that action, as well as for the other item under option 2 for the easement, the public easement. With that, I'll answer any questions that City Council may have related to the item.
And that cost can be huge. And I'm a true believer that God has a great sense of humor, because I was hoping that this whole thing would be resolved. And I say you have a sense of humor because here I am right here. You got those who want the park, and want it to be kept private, and then you have those that, hey, saying, I don't want that liability and that responsibility. And I understand both sides of it. I mean, I truly understand, and we're in a position that's pretty tough, and then at the same time, we're looking at the cost aspect of this. I mean, we're talking about quite a bit. I mean, upwards of maybe $1 million or more, you know, and or several millions. And I just don't know where to go with this. I mean, I hear everyone, and I understand. I don't know if any other council members want to chime in, but Deputy Mayor Warner.
Like you, I'm kind of surprised that we found ourselves in this situation because I've been in Cocoa since the 70s, and I've enjoyed that park since the 70s, and I always thought it was the city park, and everybody in my neighborhood who's been going there since they were small children thought it was a city park. But now that we know that we don't have, as a city, any legal interest in the park, I think we need to do the right thing. And in my mind, the right thing is to let the true owners of the park have their park back and let them, as the owners of the park, decide how they want to move forward. Once they make a decision, if they want to involve the city in whatever future the park has, that's up to them. I would definitely be open to working out an agreement with them, or taking control of the park back if that's what the majority of the owners in Carlton Terrace would like to do. I think there's a definite public benefit to having the park. I also think there probably needs to be some changes made there, whether the current owners maintain it or the city does. But I don't think anybody can move forward until we do the right thing and clear the cloud that is currently on the title to the park. So I think whatever happens in the future, whether they move forward or they come back to us and ask us to deal with this, right now the thing that we need to do is take an action to clear the title on this property, so that if they choose to replat their subdivision so that they can do something else with the park, by us clearing the cloud on the title, that will make whatever steps they take next easier for them. Like I said, if, 6 months or a year from now they come back and say, hey, we as a group have made this decision and we want to lease it to the city, or we want to give it to the city, or whatever, I'm fine with that. But right now, I just think we need to do the right thing by these residents and clear this title so that they can move forward and make a decision as a group of property owners.
Thank you, ma'am. I got 4 cards here. I'm going to go ahead, if you guys are all right with that, I'm going to go ahead and let them come up and talk.
Yep.
And we got a Walter Jordan first. If you can please come up and...
I'll relinquish my time.
Okay. Barry Mangeli, or... Maybe I'm looking at this wrong.
Yeah, Barry Menegilli, 2119 McFarland, Cocoa, and just trying to get a point of clarification. There's some mention here previously by Matt as far as a plat easement is concerned, and the fact that there was no title found for the city. I just want to get a clarification, because my understanding of if in fact this park is a quote plat easement and there is no title, okay, how can you say that anybody, city or otherwise, owns the park? Since the developer of the park, okay, since the developer of the park is now passed, that corporation has been dissolved, okay, and there is no record of anything in terms of a title to the park being passed on. I'd just like some clarification as to what this truly means in terms of, quote, the gray area of ownership of the park.
Let me address that, if you wouldn't mind, Matt. The property was platted in the 1920s by a development company that's now a Florida dissolved corporation. In that plat, the developer dedicated to all of the lot owners of Carlton Terrace a private park easement. The developer, as far as we can determine based on the title report that was prepared, never conveyed fee simple title to anyone by a legal instrument that's recorded in the public records. So absent any other, evidence, the title, the fee title of the property, AKA the actual ownership of that property, still appears to be in the hands of the dissolved Florida Corporation, the original developer from the 1920s. Nowhere in the plat document, nowhere in the official records of Brevard County is there either a dedication of a public easement to the city of Cocoa or a conveyance of fee simple title of that property to the city of Cocoa. There's no recorded interests that we could find in the title company could find regarding this property.
Thank you, sir. Does that answer your question, sir?
Thank you for that explanation. Could one also infer from that there is literally no title for anyone else?
Yeah. I'm not sure I understand that question other than.
Well, in other words, what I'm saying is, like, for instance, I have a title deed to my house, and it specifically says this plat, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If in the case of the Carlton Terrace Park, there is no title, no deed that can be found anywhere that would say the ownership of that plat belongs to either the city or anyone else, can one infer that there is no ownership per se of that park, that it is in fact an easement that can be used by the Carlton Terrace owners as a park, but that you cannot necessarily, and this is something that may need to be determined later, that you cannot necessarily infer that you own part or parcel of that park. Just trying to make sure.
If your question is whether the lot owners own that property in fee title, based on the title report, they do not.
Thank you. That's exactly what I wanted.
They have a private easement.
Okay, Mr. Troy Orinder.
Thank you for the time here.
Thank you, sir.
Having followed this thing really all the way through, right from the beginning and the August meeting and the things that have occurred over time, I guess I take some difference with some of the terms that I see. You know, I certainly understand that the last statutory title that was held by Cocoa Land Development Company as such. But they in turn entered into an agreement, a written agreement, by recording the plat itself within the county records. And they dedicated that lot to each and every single one of the lot owners within Carlton Terrace. That dedication goes to perpetuity. It lasts as long as Carlton Terrace in itself exists, where we have that, whatever term that we wish to use, whether it's an easement, whether it's ownership, whether it's common law deed, that runs with the property itself. And we feel very strongly with that. You know, we think we don't think, we know it's a very beautiful little piece of real estate, and we take great pride in it. It certainly has its problems. It will continue to have problems. We hope that as with other communities around where we begin to take charge of our communities, especially with policing actions and other things, that as good as our local constabulary is, that quite frankly, they haven't been able to control it to the degree that we would like, and the ability for them with the manpower that they have probably is pretty far-fetched as well, with great respect to our local police department. If we look at what has occurred here, at least since the year 2000 or so when I bought my property, and the continued issues and problems with the park, of which some will downplay those and others will play them up and say, hey, this is really a bad place. Frankly, it isn't a bad place, but it has its issues. The things that we have seen since on October 10th, when this council ordered the locking and the closure of the gate, the traffic is down within our neighborhood, on Coquina, on Carlton Terrace, Carlton Drive itself, probably 20 to 30%. Do I have exact numbers? No, but we see it daily. We know that since, personally, I've been involved in cleaning up and trying to take care of the park itself, mowing it, working with it. Since when it was originally locked up, the following week that I went down to mow the grass, I picked up 11 hypodermic needles laying within the parking area itself. I could go in, and embellish this somewhat or extend it. That really isn't the big issue either. The big issue still is that each of the lot owners in Carlton Terrace was dedicated a 197th portion of that when they bought their properties. Now, that number will vacillate just a little, or it will oscillate up and down just a little. But that's the feeling, that we have this property, this easement, per se, in perpetuity. And we would strongly object at about, I think we have 90-some positive. We're quitting.
Okay.
Versus about 26 that want to give it away.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time.
That's not true.
Next, we have Mr. Charles Carrington.
Good evening. Charles Carrington, 2106 Indian River Drive, Cocoa. My background is as a real estate lawyer with Lowndes, Drosdick, Doster, Cannon Reed in Orlando, and after that with Greenberg Trarg as a shareholder there as well. So I have a background with real estate and more of a background with looking at plats and title than I care to have. This, I can tell you from experience, is the kind of problem that a group of real estate lawyers will talk about over lunch and laugh about, and maybe the one stuck with it will cry about. It's a complicated legal situation. It's not unique, though. This plat reference is really not for someone who examines title regularly, it's not uncommon for the developer in platting a piece of property retain the underlying fee simple title to a piece of property and then create rights in the residence for that piece of property. Might be for a park, might be for drainage purposes, like a drainage retention pond, but it's not unusual. It's not the ideal way to do it. Since the 70s and 80s, there's another way to do it. That's the preferred way to do it. We all have to keep in mind that this plat was done in 1924. It's actually pretty dang sophisticated for 1924, but no one should be surprised that there wasn't an ancillary deed to each of the residents in 1924. The fact of the matter is there's a clear intention of the dedicator, the developer, to create this for the residents. And so this is a type of situation where if you had a group of real estate lawyers, they would agree, each and every one of them, that there's no question that the residents, whether you want to call it an easement or part owner, they have the park. So the rights derive from that plat. There's a problem with the petition that's been submitted by the folks that would like the city involved with the park, and that is that the rights they derived were for a private park. If you read the petition closely, what they're proposing is something different. Public access, a public park. They don't have the rights to offer up what it is that they're purporting to offer in the petition. So legally, I believe, and Anthony can comment on behalf of the city, but legally I believe that the petition itself is a nullity for that reason. I couldn't come before you with a petition about something I frankly have no legal authority to propose. And so certainly beyond that, they're not representing us, those of the residents that are in favor of a private park. I want to submit a check-in sheet for the last meeting. It evidences that approximately 96 of the residents are in favor of keeping the park as a private park. And so I'd like to provide that too.
Thank you.
And, that ends it, other than, I would encourage you to go with the recommendation of staff here, which is to go with the October 10, 2018 decision.
Thank you, sir. You got to wrap it up, please.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Okay, are there any more cards, or that was the last card I had? If you can. Give us your name and address, please.
Hi, thank you. My name is Linda Dolphin, and my address is 2100 North Indian River Drive. And I'm just surprised tonight to learn for the first time from the city attorney that we don't really have an ownership interest. We really just have an easement. And I wonder if there's any ability to comment on whether that would mean that we would be liable as owners within McFarland Terrace for any injuries in the park or any other form of liability, since we don't really have a clear ownership title. Any thoughts?
Mr. City Attorney.
Well, I with due respect, I can't comment on that. And if the council were to move forward and disclaimed interest in the park, I can't even relate on how the lot owners would move forward with their easement rights.
Thank you.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. Councilman Goins, did you have any?
I think my main concern is the division inside of Carlton Terrace. No matter what decision is made today, there's still going to be that division tomorrow. You as citizens has the opportunity to come together in this situation. By being on council, I speak for an entire city of citizens, and I'm not comfortable with having the citizens pay residents for the portion of the park to be public. I do not like the idea of a park being private unless it's in a gated community. That's how I feel personally. That's just my opinion. I would love for it to be public, but in this situation, it's very, very difficult. It's a legal situation. It's something I'm not comfortable with going down that road as for the city. But I just hope and wish, no matter what happens today, the residents can come together. We're talking about a park, okay? This is something that I feel like you should be able to have at least a decent conversation about it, agree to disagree, but you're gonna have to deal with this park moving forward. The last meeting I went to was an awesome meeting. I love, no matter what your ideology is about this park, the fact that you're able to come to the meeting and meet together and argue back and forth about what's right and what's wrong, I love that. That's democracy. That's a beautiful thing. But tomorrow, you have to come together about this issue. But I'm not comfortable with the city taking ownership at this point based on, I don't know what the amount may be. It may be 2 million, 3 million, 5 million, I do not know. And I'm not comfortable with the citizens, the purse being open for that. That's just my opinion.
Councilman Bover.
Yeah, I'd like to express my feeling of what the Councilman Goins said, and I'm the same feeling. I'm the one that brought that up, I believe, at the October 10th meeting about, when we didn't know who owned it and this and that. And I don't believe the city should get involved with this, and I think we should turn it over to the citizens and let them handle it. And I think the liability with the city would be off and let them work it out. It's their park. and then let them handle it and keep the city out of it completely. I read the things, and I still don't know how we got involved in it. 1924, I don't even remember, was I born? No, I wasn't born then, but, 1924, that's a long way. Some of us have been, I'm sure maybe some of you have been here.
Only Rick.
Huh?
Only Mr. Dow.
No, I'm only kidding. Mr. Dow was probably the only one that been here at the time. So I would say just turn it over to the homeowners and let them handle it. Thank you.
Councilman Goins, you had something else?
I guess I just have a question. For us, definitely for the people who are potentially trying to get some sort of a homeowner association organized, who's going to maintain the gate? Who's going to give authority to use the park? Who's going to, that's my only concern. I don't live in the area, but I have concern that if there's separation now, what happens when you turn somebody down because you don't like them this week about having a birthday party at the park? That certain issues that may seem simple, but it could be a big deal down the road. And that's, cause you will, okay. 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 All right. Hopefully so. All right.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor Warner?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that, by removing ourselves and passing a resolution that says, we're going to, or as they said, following option 1, that the staff recommends, and removing ourselves and clearing the cloud that may be on the title, we give the neighborhood an opportunity to move forward and do whatever it is that they choose to do. Personally, if I was a property owner in Carlton Terrace and it was our decision to keep the park, I would start looking at one of these kayak or canoeing clubs and maybe partner with them and make it a place where you might get some people to come in and enjoy, and maybe lease it and not have the expense of maintaining it. Would lease it to one of these clubs and make your money back. But I just would like to see the city step out of it for now until the neighborhood comes to some decisions. And like I said, you all are part of the city of Cocoa. At some future point, you decide you need our help in some way, shape, or form, I'm open to listening to whatever ideas you come up with. But for now, I think we need to make these people whole and give them the opportunity to move forward.
Done.
And I'm in support of that. I mean, I just, man, this is a rough deal, and I would love for you guys to work it out. I mean, I just think that as a community, man, there's so many things going on in life today and in this country, and here we are about a park, and it's sad, but okay. I just think that it's something that I hope and pray that we all work out, and you all work out, and
okay.
It is what it is.
I'd like to make a motion to go with number 1, turn the park over back to the citizens of Carlton Terrace, and dissolve the city of any partnership, ownership, or whatever you want to call with that park.
We got a motion by Councilman Bover.
I'll second that.
Second by Councilwoman Warner, Deputy Mayor Warner. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. We're going to move on to our multiple year contracts. We got item number 2, Mr. Utilities Director.
Yes, sir, Mayor. This is item number 2 under City Business Multi-Year Contracts. To approve the scope of services with Wharton Smith Incorporated of Sanford, Florida for the Construction Manager at Risk Services for the Chemical Conversion and Reliability Improvements Project at the Dow Water Treatment Plant, project number WS1404, and to approve it as a multi-year contract. So this item was already before council to select Wharton Smith amongst other 2 providers for construction services for water improvements, heavy civil type work. This particular agenda item is actually approving basically a task order, which is within the city manager's signing authority, but we're bringing it before you anyway, along with the percentages of overhead and profit that would be for the future project that's currently under design. So Wharton Smith's construction team will combine with the engineering design team and city staff to finish the plans to 90%. At that point, we get a guaranteed maximum price from them, in which they apply those percentages, which is what we selected them based on. If we like those prices, we go forward with Wharton Smith into the construction phase. If we don't, Wharton is then not allowed to bid on it, and it goes out to the street in the normal procurement process.
Okay.
So this is an exciting new process using the CMAR, and Wharton was the low bidder, if you will, on the criteria that we put out, which had to do with the cost of consulting, as well as, more importantly, the cost of the percentages of overhead profit on the large projects that'll be coming up.
Okay, thank you, sir. What is wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We got a motion by Deputy Mayor Warner, second by Councilman Bovair. Did you want to say something, or?
No.
Oh, okay. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Item number 2 on the multiple-year contracts. Mr. Utilities Director.
Yes, sir. Actually, item number 3 is to approve the proposal by Connect Consulting Incorporated of High Springs, Florida, for hydrogeological services for wellfield evaluation and rehabilitation services, for aquifer storage and recovery wells services utilizing the City of Palm Coast RFQ PW-U-1512 services contract for professional hydrogeological services. Council has seen task orders before with CCI. They also do our regular normal our well field rehab work. The contract was already bid by Palm Coast. We've been piggybacking with them for a number of years, probably up to 4 or 5 years now. But this particular task order is specifically for our aquifer storage recovery wells, which are used in concert when we use Taylor Creek Reservoir. It is the water we store underground in the aquifer, and to help us level out our water availability when the reservoir level changes. And I'm here to answer any other questions you may have, if any, on the proposal.
Thank you, sir. What's the wishes of the council?
Motion to approve.
We got a motion by Councilwoman Cost, a second by Councilman Bovair. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It passes unanimously. Okay, we're gonna move on to, we got an information agenda. There's some items in there I want to discuss, but I'll discuss those later, so I have some concerns with. But we're gonna go to reports and advisory committees. Any reports? We're gonna move on to city administration. Mr. Weegraff.
Yes, Mayor and Council. We heard from Mr. Greenwood on the crosswalks, the paver crosswalks and ramps. We are in midst of a project to repave the city, and in order to the downtown area. In order to stay on schedule, we need to keep progressing with these crosswalks. Just for your information, these brick crosswalks are between 25 and 35 years old. They have held up fairly well, but they are showing their wear. The crosswalks need to be replaced for ADA compatibility. We are required to replace ramps and make all the sidewalks and crosswalks compatible with ADA as part of our ADA transition plan that we had to do for federal funding. We've received federal funds in the past. This keeps us in compliance. These crosswalks, we propose to replace them with stamped asphalt. We're looking at a continuity through the city, something similar exactly what we did on Florida Avenue. We would replicate here in the downtown area. We've also done these on Stone Street and Peachtree. So we would, just ask for your permission to keep the progress going. Leaving the existing bricks in place would slow the project down.
Okay. I just, what I would like, though, I just, this whole project kind of caught me off guard, and I understand that 3 of us wasn't here, but there's some, I know there's some future stuff that's going on with the city, and it'd be nice to be kind of updated on some of the stuff that's going on instead of being caught off guard. So I know I was definitely caught off guard, and I was down there trying to figure out what was going on, and of course, I got a couple messages and some pictures, but I looked at some of the stuff firsthand, so I just hope that the staff understand that we're just coming in, so just kind of let us know what's going on, so when we get some of these phone calls and some of this stuff, we might, have a little bit of knowledge about how to address these issues and these concerns. So.
All right, well.
But
yes, we'll keep you informed.
Thank you, sir. And Councilwoman Kosh?
Yeah, just wanted, of course, I got calls too, and then I went down there this morning, and because I kind of love that about Cocoa Village, that they have those brick inlays, and I looked at the one spot that's right over there by the Derby Street Chapel, and it already has the ADA compliance, so some of those already have it, so this is really a matter of you've got to pave that street, and you can't pave it with the bricks there?
Well, the bricks have to be lined up with the curb ramps that they're pouring, and the bricks are not compliant for a curb ramp, so the ramps are being made out of concrete. And then the ramp has to meet the brick pavers in the crosswalk. The brick pavers don't match, so they would have to be relayed. There's less trip hazards and better installation and a continuity through the city if we make them all the same. And, that's what we've proposed, and that's what we've started. The crosswalk actually at Orange Street lines up with the storm drains. So, that one has to go. So.
Can I make a statement while we're on the subject?
Well, they're just doing reports right now, so.
Can I add some other information?
I mean, it's up to you guys. What do you?
No.
Well,
No? Okay.
well, just to say that I did go to Florida Avenue. I looked at the stamped asphalt. I had no idea that it was stamped asphalt. So, I mean, I didn't realize that before. I thought that it was brickwork as well. It doesn't bother me at all, though, that the village would be a little different than the rest of Cocoa in terms of everything being the same. So, for example, where Alex lives, again, it already had the ADA compliance. It didn't?
No, the ramps in the village are not ADA compliant.
Okay.
Just because they're not a vertical curb does not mean they're ADA compliant.
They were there before they were removed.
Mr. Greenwood.
Sorry. That's an incorrect statement.
So are you saying that they're not ADA compliant based on the slope of the side of the ramp, or is it something else?
Yes, and they also have to have the detectable surface on them. They have to be, within tolerance of cross slope, longitudinal slope, and it's hard to make them fit. If you've ever tried to build one, you got to know what you're doing.
So
it's hard to fit everything together.
There's another, I know we run across this a lot too, is another issue with the brick pavers when some break, finding the colors that match. Is that another issue as well when you?
Well, the color on these pavers, I was going to bring some in. The colors are obviously faded after 35 years, so you would never find the exact color match. It would just be a similar color, but you would tell that it's a different color.
Will you have, okay, that's my last question too, by the way. So, as far as the asphalt, when you paint it to make it look like the brick, is that something that have to be painted every 2 years, every 3, or, I mean, what's the process of that?
They advertise 10 to 15 years. I know Rockledge has done it. Where Florida comes out on the US 1, a lot of cars that use that, it needs to be redone. So no, they don't last forever, but they're fairly easy to redo. This is 10 to 15 year, depending on the traffic.
Mr. Assistant City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just maybe provide some clarification. First, just apologize for the new members not being aware of the project, but some of the background on it. It was actually proposed for the prior fiscal year, and due to the length of Stone Street and the bids that came in, we used the city's annual paving budget that was actually dedicated for the downtown last year and put that towards the Stone Street project so we could see that through. And so the compromise was that city staff or the Public Works crews would get a contract underway immediately into the fiscal year to ensure that what we had originally promised in fiscal year 2018 would occur as soon as possible. Now, we did, obviously our focus was on the impacts to the businesses downtown, and so we did do our best to provide notification to them, and as well as the crews that are down there now working around the schedules of the downtown merchants. And so it was an oversight that we didn't get you informed right out of the gate, so just to let you know.
Okay. And
Just one more quick question. So the ADA compliance is required in the village versus, but it's not, for example, required in my neighborhood?
It's required on all the sidewalks. We're required to replace the curb ramps and the compliance when we resurface.
When you resurface, okay.
Downtown here, there was 25 or 30 of them that we had to redo. When we redid Hewlett Avenue, for example, we had to replace curb ramps. There were some that were installed that weren't compliant, so we had to reinstall curb ramps through the years to make them compliant.
So the one that you dug out today, then, you're going to go back and do the curbs?
It all gets done, yes. The curb has to blend into the ramp. There can't be too much of a transition. The slopes all have to match. You can't, it's pretty tough to fit it all in, especially when you're in an existing area, trying to make it drain. So, yes.
Thank you, sir. Anything else, or?
No, that's enough, I think.
Ms. Bowman?
No report.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief?
No report, sir.
No report, Mayor.
Thank you, sir.
No report.
Just one reminder, there was a sustainability committee that was supposed to be held tomorrow night that I was actually presenting at, and it got moved to March 7th. So if anybody's interested, it's on the 7th, and it'll be, I will be presenting on behalf of utilities of some of the practices that we're following. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No report.
Wow. Okay. On you, sir.
Yes, sir. I guess following up on the Public Works Director, I believe he was looking for a consensus among council so they could continue with the project.
It was already in the move, so I mean, I'm fine. I mean, I'm fine with it. I mean, I just wish that we've had a heads up, and unfortunately, this is something that I guess was pre-approved before we got here, and doesn't necessarily make it right, but because I know some things were switched around for reasons that I think are not right. In other words, some projects were moved aside for election purposes, and that's my personal opinion. I'm going to throw that out there. That's coming from me. But that's all right. It's all good. But that's not going to happen here with this council that we have in place right now. But what's done is done. Thank you, sir. And that's my opinion. We can move forward.
Can I make one comment? Okay, on this issue? I just want to say, because, when I texted John this morning about it, the response was just to do, that this would be uniform with the rest of COCO. And in terms of the village, I just want to be on the record that it doesn't have to be uniform with all of Cocoa. I mean, it's kind of those sweet little things about Cocoa Village that make it special, and I don't want to ever lose sight of those, so that's my opinion.
The only other item I have, it came up at the mayor's town hall meeting regarding the microphone and the recorded audio stream. Just to let everyone know, we made some adjustments, so if you have some folks out there listening, let us know how it is, and we can continue to work on that, but we'll listen back through the stream. We did some testing, even listening through mobile devices, and it seems to be much better. So.
Yes, it is. I've noticed that, yeah. Thank you, sir. Mr. City Manager.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple items. Staff will meet regarding Michigan Avenue and report back to City Council with the express concerns of the resident, Mr. McGee. We'll also follow up on the ditch on First Street and St. John's, looking at that. And then just before one other item, is there a consensus, I know, on the ordinance, the request for an ordinance to essentially ban puppy mills? And just by way of background, I know it was last year, not last legislative cycle before that, there was a proposed bill to preempt, municipalities or local governments from banning them, but there is a current bill out there right now, House Bill 3, it's already made its way through one of its committee that would preempt local governments as it relates to regulating or impacting certain commerce. And it's basically, it's almost like for those 2 years ago, House Bill 17, Representative Fine's bill regarding preemption, with a little bit more in terms of withholding state.
Why don't we see what happens in this legislative session and then readdress it
That was going to be my suggestion, because they could be off or not if they
Well, we'd be
pass House
wasting
Bill
staff
3.
time if, let's wait till after the legislative session. It's still an issue. We can address it then.
Yeah. So the last item I have is every couple of years, the Brevard County Mosquito Control, as you know, they control the mosquitoes through both aircraft and ground vehicles. For purposes of conducting their aircraft operations for mosquito control, they spray, and it's really the only, as they deem, the only real way to combat the spread of encephalitis and West Nile virus. And since they will be flying over our jurisdiction, the FAA requires them to get written approval, and it is a 2-year time period from May of 19 to May of 2021. And in the past, I've just sought consensus from council and provided a letter to them authorizing. So if there's consensus, I'll forward a new letter to them authorizing them to conduct their aircraft operations over the city of Cocoa.
I'm fine with it.
Okay. And that's.
I'd hate to think what would happen if we were the only city that wasn't getting sprayed for mosquitoes.
Trouble.
And I also, just the last item, you all received my memo regarding the follow-up and the request for information from Mr. Waters, who appeared before City Council in January after several attempts to meet. We met on the 20th, and I sent you all the email this past evening.
Yes, sir.
And that's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Just one thing on the mosquito control. So do they go over the Indian River?
This is for this corporate limits of the city of Cocoa, so I don't know.
I don't think they do spray the river. I haven't seen them along the river spraying.
I mean, that would have to be permitted by somebody, I assume, and with all the work that's going into restoring the lagoon. but I don't know.
I don't think I've ever seen them
Yeah, I don't-
flying
they-
along the river, huh?
They don't, but of course.
I will
the winds-
inquire and report back
And the
to,
other issue would be, during what conditions? Just like one day this week when we had a contractor that was, spraying for weeds along the right-of-way, and it was so windy that I assume it's Roundup it wasn't going on the weeds.
Yeah, it has to be certain
Definitely.
conditions
Yeah.
before they get up and spray. Yeah.
I'm just not sure if they have any permitting requirements for that, or...
well, they do, and it just, all the taxpayers pay for the mosquito control district, and they conduct their operations, but in order to do their flight operations over the city of Cocoa, the FAA requires them to get approval. And so they say they spray for mosquitoes in both adult deciding and larviciding activities. So I can try to get some more information and bring it
Well, I
back.
don't like mosquitoes.
Are you done? Councilman Goins. Thank you, sir.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to send a great congratulations to our Cocoa Police Department for making an arrest on the case that we had the last couple of weeks. It's been a very trying time for the city. And so I commend Chief and all the detectives and the community for coming together. Sometimes we don't come together as we should, but in times like this, I feel that we, as a community, we came together pretty strong. I think we did a good job of helping the police department in every way possible, anonymous or some people didn't care if they was anonymous or not. When we come together, when we make communication with the community and build that relationship, this is what happens. So thank you to Chief. I appreciate you for all the hard work you did. There also was a couple citizens' inquiries about maybe city manager can answer this, about installing emergency call stations. I know in college we had those big blue lights that we had when you was in an emergency or panicking, or why this thing popping, or you're not able to access a telephone or a cell phone. The citizens can possibly hit that button and keep running, or whatever the case may be, and it's an alert to the police department. And it really became a conversation based on this particular case. So is that something that we have ever thought about, or something that, that's when we talk about solar power, it could be powered through solar, that can, another step of helping our citizens be safe. Is that something that we possibly can do?
Yeah, we actually did some research regarding that program back in 2014, because you see them at many universities, and that there are many options to include solar. You also need the phone connection to make it work. We did follow up on the research behind that program through the National Institute of Justice, and they didn't find any correlation between the perceived safety as well as real safety associated with the placement of those. I think back in the day when it was very common to install those, folks didn't have cell phone accessibility they do now. So things have changed, but I believe it did mention in the report that, those passing through, it may provide, some perceptions of a presence there, but significant lost staff time in investigating false button presses. Typically, they have a camera on them as well, but that's what we found at that time.
Yeah, because if I'm 12, I'm going to push that button a whole lot, because
I got you.
it's going to cost them activity.
Oh, yeah.
I got you. Okay. It was just some people asked me about it, and I told them what I do. I bring it to the council, and maybe just some inquiry about it. I would like to get some information. If you could email me and I will get it to the people that was asking about it.
Do you still have a copy of that report out?
Yeah, I can gather that research
Maybe to
and
see
get
it,
it to you.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
if
you.
you can get it to us and let us
Yeah.
see it, yeah.
The county Parks and Recs, they did a pretty decent job at Fern and Prospect with that. They finally put mulch after 2 or 3 weeks of calling and Matt harassing them, but they finally are trying to spruce up the parks. We're working right now. Hopefully, we can get that gate open. Matt made a phone call to them to open the gates, and it has not been done thus far. So what I'm possibly planning is a community rededication day, kind of like how we did with Provost Park. Maybe we can get the churches together, maybe in a month or whatever we come up with, to bring the community back together. We have to rededicate that park back to the community. Kids do not come to that park. That park is a big issue. But with activity, I believe that we can remove some of that problem, hopefully. The community cleanup day we did this weekend on Rosa Jones and Washington area, Bernard Street, was a huge success. A lot of volunteers came from Eastern Florida State, a lot of young people that came out and helped. We did a pretty good job. We have an issue at the pond on Bernard Street. A lot of that trash, and I talked to Matt about it as well, a lot of that trash is coming through the storm drains, getting to that particular pond. And that pond, we probably had about 12 bags of trash just on the edge of the pond. That's ridiculous. So I don't know if something, Mr. Wheatgriff, that can be possibly looked at, and me and Matt talked about it a few times, but a lot of trash is getting to that pond. It is, and yes, kids definitely throw trash in it too. I understand that as well. But maybe also a conversation with Habitat for Humanity to get a fence around that pond as well, because it's another thing with safety. A lot of kids trying to go, when we was out there, they was out there trying to get the balls and getting close to the edge. And we have a lot of issues at times in our community with drownings as well. So I would like for that to be looked at, Matt and Mr. Regriff, about that pond. That's all I had. I appreciate everybody coming out definitely for the McFarland Park issue. That was a very tough situation, and I'm still concerned about moving forward. I think it's a lot of division in that community, in that area regarding this park. I know that the city owns property, so hopefully we can stay in the conversation. I'm probably going to remove myself from the emails now, so just in case someone cuss me out. But I hopefully that community can come together. I'm hopeful, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. And so, with that being said, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor Warner.
Yeah, did you get the same thing I got, Alex? Somebody in that neighborhood telling you to mind your own business?
Yes, I
Wasn't none of your
did.
business? That's what I got too. Wasn't none of my business. That's okay. Just a couple of things. The dedication down there was really, really nice and well attended, and it was great to see that many people come out to dedicate a Habitat for Humanity home to a female veteran. That's probably the best turnout I've ever seen at one of those events. Also, really happy to see that we've made an arrest in our homicide case, and hoping that with service coming up this weekend, that at least gives the family an opportunity to grieve without worrying about him being on the streets. Also, Mr. Wigriff, I don't know, is there something going on US 1? It's like from right about Economy Muffler all the way to Brunson Boulevard on both sides of the street. There are no street lights on US 1. It's dark as it can be out there. It's been that way for days. And the same thing on Indian River Drive, from Dixon Boulevard all the way up to 1515, that whole section through there, there's no street lights on them. It's like, I was driving around the city the other night, I'm like, I mean, I know I'm starting to get cataracts, but it was pretty bad. And I'm looking at US 1, and I'm like, there's no streetlights. There's not one
We
street light
can
on.
check that.
Yeah.
The city does maintain those lights.
Yeah, it's, like I said, it's from Brunson. It's almost like it, right there on the dividing line at Brunson, but it's from Brunson all the way almost to Dixon, to Economy Muffler, which is just almost all the way up to Dixon Boulevard. There's no streetlights on either side of the road at all.
Okay, we'll check
Pitch
those
black.
tomorrow.
And like I said, on Indian River Drive, just from Dixon all the way up to 1515. And then also on Dixon, just on the east side of Crosswinds, those lights right in there are on the same side that Crosswinds is on, which would be the south side of Dixon. Those lights right in there just to the east of Crosswinds are out. And I know police department has a lot of issues with runaways up in there. So that whole area right there around the entrance to Crosswinds is really, really dark at
Those
night.
lights are FPL maintained.
Okay.
So anyone can call those in. Obviously, we'll go look
Okay.
and see. But if any resident sees a street light out, most likely it's FPL. You go online and report an outage, and it's very easy to do.
There's a number on the pole as well.
Right.
I wasn't going to
They
get out
like
and look at that
number.
pole the other night, but yeah,
Right.
there is
But yeah,
numbers on the poles, yeah.
We'll look at that and get those
Okay.
reported to FPL and see how long it takes them to get them fixed.
Okay, thank you. And also, Pineda Street, who's responsible for the paving that? I know part of it's ours, part of it's the county. Who's responsible for paving Pineda? Is that us or the county?
The parts that are within city limits is us. The parts that are in the county is the county.
So in parts of it, kind of like the east side belongs to us and the west side belongs to them, so do we like pave half and they pave half?
Yeah, generally, we would do
A joint?
a joint project and do it kind of all at once.
It's actually it's a north and south issue. We have the north portion.
Well, we've got the north, basically north of ABC
Yeah.
Street on both sides, and
then
then
they
south
have
of
they have
ABC
the south
Street,
portion.
Mhm.
we got the east side. So,
Yeah, I know the east side is ours down there and the west side is theirs, and it's getting pretty bad. I don't know where it is on the list, but
well, it's more than just paving. The road's going to have to be reconstructed.
Mhm.
And again, once you touch a road, you have to do the handicap ramps.
Mhm.
And the sidewalk is a huge issue, so.
Oh, yeah.
There's actually a project on the books, but it's more than just slapping a coat of asphalt down.
Well, with there being a school along in there, I think it becomes a little bit more of an issue because you have not just the children going to the school, you have parents and grandparents walking those children to school. So there's a lot of
Yes, the sidewalks
traffic
have
in there,
issues, we're
yeah.
aware of it.
Okay.
FPL didn't help, we're trying to get some of those fixed, but
Yeah.
the whole road needs to be reconstructed.
It's definitely in pretty bad shape. I won't be driving down it again anytime soon if I can help it. That's it for me. Thank you.
Is that called traffic calming?
That's definitely traffic calming. It's like stay off of that street is what it is.
Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you.
Councilman Bover.
Yes, I just want to congratulate the chief on your arrest. Great work by the Detective Bureau and the Police Department. Good reception, and also I want to say thank you to the chief and deputy chief for inviting us to the award presentation, the swearing in the 5 new firefighters on Friday night, which was a good turnout, good reception. Councilwoman Cost, Deputy Mayor, and myself were there, and Alex was in Orlando, so he couldn't be there, so, right? And you, I don't know where you were.
I was actually fell asleep. I was exhausted.
Well, he fell asleep, that's why he wasn't there. That was a good reception, Chief, thanks for inviting us. And then we were at that groundbreaking for Habitat for Humanity, a good turnout. The city council was there in full strength, and really good work going on in the city, and we're moving forward with that construction on 524. They just sold another piece of land out there 2 days ago, so I see a lot of development up there. Keep that station busy. Thank you very much, and have a great night, everyone.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Kosh.
Yeah. I went to the transportation and tourist event, which Peter Kajiyama, who spoke at our economic development breakfast a couple years ago, was a speaker, and he was quite inspirational. His book, Love Where You Live, creating emotionally engaging places, and it really, that's why this whole sidewalk thing really struck a note, because he talks about these very small things you can do that make a place special. I was going to say, I did go to the ribbon cutting also at the Organic Spa and Salon on Oleander Street, and they have assured me that I can continue to maintain my youth with organic products, so that's good. Glad to have them here. And I also attended pension meetings for the police and the fire department, and I hope, please assure everyone I'm not trying to go after anybody's pension. That was not my reasoning behind being there. I just wanted to learn more, and I'm trying to go to all meetings and just, you know, get a better picture of the city overall. Really enjoyed the fire department event the other night, and I went to that awards kind of presentation thinking, oh, okay, I'll get through this. But it was really interesting. I thought you did a great job with each presentation, educating the audience about different aspects of fire department work, so thank you for that. And my apologies for not making the Community Legends this weekend, but I was involved in the McFarland Park thing. And also, thanks to the fire department for my weather alert. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you, ma'am. Chief, I wanted to make it to the awards deal and for their new employees that was coming on, but I actually had 3 events earlier that day, and I actually passed out and fell asleep. I was exhausted. My body just couldn't take it anymore because I've been pretty busy trying to get some stuff done. But anyway, I just wanted to, there's a couple of things I want to mention. Mr. City Manager, I was hoping that on behalf of the city, we were going to be sending some flowers, our floral arrangement to the for the funeral for the young lady that was killed here in our city, that was killed in Osceola, but was a resident of our city. I just think that that'd be a good gesture considering, you know, some of the circumstances behind that, sir. I don't know what maybe the consensus of the council. I mean, if you guys, I just think that'd be nice if we sent some flowers. And then also, Chief, thank you to your officers that was involved in resolving this. And I knew I was getting a lot of phone calls, and when I was telling them, I said, hey, this or here is an ongoing investigation, and there's stuff that they can't tell us, and so I'm not going to expound on anything because I don't have anything to tell you. And I said, when it's done, it's done. And you guys did a good job, and I really do appreciate that. And also went to the Black History event at Endeavor Elementary School, a few of us, and it was a nice event. They honored a lot of the local pioneers here in Brevard County, which I thought was awesome. That's been the theme and the focus of Black History Month this year, and it's been absolutely wonderful. I was driving through the city of Cocoa as well as portions of Rockledge, and I noticed that we have a number of bus stops with benches, and there's no waste containers there. I was looking at the garbage situation, not just in the city of Cocoa and Rockledge as well, and I was really surprised. And I was actually going to give Dr. Fetro a call as well because, you know, we have some serious issues with these bus stops. These are some active bus stops that was along Roselle Jones. There's a couple, several along Fisk Boulevard, and where there's benches, no pads. And I don't even care about the pads, but the fact that there's no garbage cans there, and there's just garbage all over the place in these at these locations. Individuals just leave the stuff there, drop it because there's nowhere for them to put their garbage. And I'm going to be addressing that with the TPO as well. I mean, it's my understanding that they're the ones that kind of head up a lot of that. Am I correct, Mr. Weegriff?
SCAT is actually in charge of the bus stops. The TPO recently did an accessibility study to see which were accessible. There's also issues. The benches a lot of times are advertising benches that just kind of appear. And, you know, I know the Diamond Square upgraded a lot of the bus stops along 520 with city standard benches and trash cans. Those benches are over $1,000 apiece, and the trash cans are about that also.
Yeah, they're
So
just.
They're not, you know,
I stopped at about 15 where there was no garbage cans, and I looked at the garbage around them or in the areas around them, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize that was that Nimmer and Cocoa, and then, like I said, there are 3 or 4 in Rockledge that I saw. So that's something I'm going to be addressing, because, you know, we're asking people to pick it up and clean it up, and, you know, unfortunately, there's nowhere for them to put their garbage other than leg it around, and a lot of them are not going to do that for some reason. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that, and also congratulations to the Cocoa High Boys basketball team. I think they're 2 games away from going to the state, or 1 game away from going to the state championship game. I think they're in the regional finals now as their next game. So kudos to those guys for doing a wonderful job. We had our Legends Parade. Once again, thanks to the police department. You guys did a wonderful job. Our VCops, volunteers. There was a lot of folks from Walter Butler, the Titusville, Rec Department, and Merritt Island that came out to support. It was a great event. A lot of people there. And once again, thank you to Deborah Dukes and those folks that are involved, all the county folks that was involved. They did a great job. We had a groundbreaking for our first woman-built home that's in the process of happening off of Whaley. Great event, and it's for veteran women, which is absolutely awesome. I'm surprised I won't mention the PAL events. We had the training for the Florida chapter of the PAL that was held here in Cocoa. And they were from all over, and it was actually a really nice event. I think all of council was there, and it was a beautiful event, and thanks to Dolores and our PD and everyone that was involved. Some nice dialogue that we had with them. Attended the Black History Month event at the Eastern Florida. It was Central Florida, the Soul Food Regal, or however you want to pronounce that. You had Francois Clemens that spoke at that event. And he was the guy that used to be on there with, what was his name? Mr. Rogers. And he spoke last night, and it was actually pretty inspiring. And it was a great event, and I thoroughly enjoyed that last night. And but I thank them for the invite, as well as the Democratic Women's Club of Central Brevard. They had a meet and greet for the elected officials. They put on a nice event at our Civic Center as well. But I'm not going to go. There's a lot of stuff. I've been very busy because I'm committed to doing what I do. I'm committed to trying to make a difference in our community. I'm committed to change. And just one last thing, Mr. City Manager, I was looking at some articles, and I remember back in 2008 that we had some issues with security here in this council chambers, and it was brought up. And then I know some previous mayor and council members had some concerns about security here, and I actually spoke with the code chair, Mr. Gifford. He actually said that at times they've had some concerns, and I know we've talked about some metal detectors, but I just don't want it to go on deaf ears. We need to really follow up on some of this stuff, and I'm hoping that we will continue to follow up on this stuff.
The consultant will be on site tomorrow doing their evaluation.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And just thank you to everybody for everything that you do. And with that being said, I'm going to get a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We get a motion from Councilman Wolver, a second from Councilwoman Carlson. All in favor, signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Okay. Have a nice night, everyone.